Hey, this is Brett Gursky. Welcome to another episode of On the List. This is episode number 59. It's November 2020. We are coming to you from the BLEAV podcast network. My guest today is a friend of mine who also happens to be one of the most successful stand-up comedians of all time. You also know him as a movie star, a two-time SNL host, and the mastermind behind the virtual table read to end all virtual table reads. Of course, I'm talking about DANE Cook. What's up, DANE?
Hey, what's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
It's good to see you. Haven't seen you a lot this year because we're quarantined.
Right.
But we're on Zoom right now, so the video from this podcast will also be up on YouTube and Instagram. So 2020 marks your 30th year in the business. How does that feel? Congratulations, first of all.
Oh man, thank you so much. It's a whirlwind of emotions when you say that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it was going to be, in some ways a victory lap year.
Mm-hmm.
And then, kind of all intents and purposes, all those things initially are delayed and then suddenly they're postponed, and then postponed seeps slowly into sometimes canceled.
Right.
And so like the rest of the world around me, we're all trying to pick up the pieces and figure out, okay, how can you continue with your, short-term goals?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, solid short-term goals are going to lead to, a better prognosis for the long road ahead. So to be in a paused period in year 30, it's whimsical to look back on some of the high watermarks.
Yeah.
It's therapeutic to look back at some of the swings and misses. But as a person that's kind of a futurist and always wants to get into the next what if, it's been difficult. It's been a tricky year just in terms of, I'm a go-getter and I'm ready to go get. And
Right.
Instead I'm, kind of in that, in that period of wait.
Yeah, because you're somebody who's always doing something. I mean, you're a touring comedian, so obviously that's something that can't happen right now. Is there any idea when people are going to get back in front of audiences, or no one knows?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of internal conversations about how do we do that. I mean, the good news is we're now looking at a potential world where in the not too distant future there could be not only vaccines,
Mm-hmm.
but there could be rapid testing and things that people could do when they walk up to the door of a concert hall or a bar or wherever somebody might go to see live entertainment. There might be ways to expedite someone's health and find out if they're, in good shape or if maybe they should go home and lay down for a little bit. So
Yeah.
I think in terms of what we've been forced to do to find new realities out of this year, there's a lot of positive opportunities in the incoming months. But for the time being, it's still, hopeful, just everybody staying hopeful and then trying to do things. And what I've tried to do is, what can I do that goes almost harkens back to the very beginning and building that fan base of creating here.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do that feels good for me to make something out of nothing here? And then what's the vessel to getting it to the people that want to be entertained?
Right. Yeah, because you've had 30 years in front of audiences. So what has that been like this year to not be in front of an audience?
It's been tricky. And, for all the, places that you can get online and you can opine and, put, pithy, funny remarks, whether it's, whatever, Twitter feeds or nothing is the visceral reaction of an audience. Nothing is as gratifying, I think, both to the person creating it and posting it and the person receiving it,
Yeah.
So even though there are gateways to getting out ideas, and I think some people do that very, very well and others, try.
Yeah.
It just feels like you want that authentic, up close and personal response, instantaneous, cause and effect. So I cannot wait to get back out there. It's been hard, but I'm also very grateful because a lot of good came out of this year. I think that's going to I'll be able to capitalize on once I'm back out in the fray.
Yeah. And so we're obviously 8 months into this quarantine. I never thought we would still be quarantined and social distancing in November, but here we are. So how have you been spending the quarantine? I know you've been with your girlfriend, Kelsey. You've been with your dog, Chopper.
Yeah. Lucky. I'm one of the lucky people that's not like trying to date in quarantine.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's like being in jail and having a conjugal visit.
Right.
I hope this goes my way. I hope I don't get caught. So I've been fortunate because I'm in a really healthy relationship with somebody who is, both physically healthy and just the relationship itself.
Yeah.
And we both really maintained a great kind of like mutual understanding that we both want to do our own independent things, but in some ways it's made even we're more of a robust relationship at the center because we worked on all the stuff that you should be working on also when you're independent, and then you come back to the table. It's more time at the table and then taking that outward. So the relationship has actually found a lot of growth, which is awesome. And then, and yet it's still always work, right? It's still always like, a constant passing of the ball and baton, and being able to, remember to, check in and what do you need and how can I help you to, feel health and wellness. So all that stuff, boxes have been checked. Independently of that, it's like the one thing that I had this year, and I was so fortunate, was I'd started writing a book about almost 2 years ago, prepping it, putting it together, keeping copious notes of years of, journaling and great footage that I, had put together. So I had this idea of like, year 30, what about a memoir that talks about, like, here's how I did what I did, self-made guy from a welfare kid from outside of Boston to the highest upper, echelon of stand-up comedy. And the book, covers that territory, but then it's really a lot about the philosophy of overcoming and making it through trauma, which I had a great deal growing up as an adult child of an alcoholic. And what did that mean to me, and how did that inform my life, or disinform my life sometimes?
Yeah.
And then also dealing with, a whole cornucopia of things happening at once: high level of fame, personal life, a lot of distraught things happening, my family getting sick, my brother and I going through this thing where I had to, incarcerate him for, putting me through a humiliating trial, and it just a lot. And the book really, at that time when I started a couple of years ago, was like, here's year 30 victory lap. Here's how I made it through all that. And it's really going to be a book of overcoming. And it is a book about overcoming trauma and staying focused, and what it means to be important in people's eyes, and then what it means to be a target, and how do you get through all that and all the variables. And I'd started the book, but I found it was so hard, man. It was so fucking difficult in writing a book. When people say, oh, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, is because you go through so many stages of who cares? Why am I that important to that people? To then like, oh, this is such a great celebration of people will want to know this. People, you go through this, push and pull of like, it's hard because it beats you up. It's like the ultimate therapy session that you're going to put out there for the world to consume forever.
Right.
And so I was hemming and hawing until COVID. And once that hit, I looked at all this material and everything I put together, and that was my goal for this year, was to finish the book and just be bold, make bold, choices. And I've done that. So we have a book that's now finished, and I'm in the process of just cultivating like the, taking little pieces on and off and figuring out who we're going to put it out through and all that good stuff.
Amazing. Oh, so see, you took this pause of a year and you focused on your book.
I don't think, man, I don't know if I would have finished it. I mean, honestly, it was like I had a big year with other things. I think I was like lining things up to probably be like, and the book. The book doesn't have to be done at exactly year 30. I had a lot of great excuses, and I'm very creative when it comes to talking myself out of things as well as into them. But I just forced myself to take that time that I would have been in a club on a Friday or Saturday night and sat and poured it all onto the screen.
I love that. Do you have a title yet for the book? Or no?
I have a couple of titles, but nothing. I have titles that I think are. I've always been one thing I always take pride in is I'm a title guy. I come up with, the album titles, the art, the everything, and the theme. And I pitched out a couple titles that my friends are like, I know why you like that, but I don't know if people will necessarily like that. But I will tell you, as a couple of people have read it, it reads like it kind of reads in a way like Confessions of a Dangerous Mind with a true story of my true story in the middle. The difference is I'm not an assassin,
Right.
but I've had things happen that you wouldn't believe, especially in and around the stuff with my parents and my brother.
Oh yeah.
People
We're
don't
gonna
know the level of intensity
yeah.
that was around that, and there were some scary things, man. There was some really, it could have been a Dateline episode if it had gone on much further than what it did.
Oh
So
yeah.
the book, because it has, somebody said to me, somebody said the hilarious of horrid,
The
being able to
comedy and
find
drama.
humor. Yeah. And so it's an amalgamation of all those things. And I hope that at the end of the day, it'll not only be, really remarkably entertaining for fans. I think that people are, even who are not,
Yeah.
can come in and hopefully find that there's some great, bargaining chip ideas in there that you can put to good use.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go through your career inside the actor studio style. So when we go through the timeline, we'll touch on some of the things you mentioned.
Okay.
But also, I wanted to ask, how's Chopper doing? Is Chopper, like, is he wondering why you're always around all of a sudden?
He's amazing. Yeah, he did. At first, he was really like, especially when the gyms closed and I set up my own little system outside. Yeah, he was very curious, but no, he's a shepherd poodle too, so he's super keen.
Yeah.
But amazing, just
Yeah.
great dog. How's yours?
He's great. You got Chopper right before I got Buddy, and
Yeah.
we spent literally the first 4 months of quarantine were just me and Buddy in LA,
Right.
like afraid to leave the house
I
except
know.
for go for walks because we didn't know if we could touch door handles. We didn't know what was going on.
Well,
And then,
here's what you
yeah.
don't even know. You put up pictures of Buddy, and then I said to Kelsey, "Oh man, Buddy's adorable. Maybe we should get a friend for Chopper."
Oh wow.
So now we're waiting on puppies that were just born, and so in a weird way, we triggered each other because Chopper and then Buddy, and then I was like, and then Kelsey's like, "Should we do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why not? We're home." So
Nice.
it's kind of been a nice look at us doggy daddies here and growing out our families.
Well, by the way, I'm so grateful anyway that I've had him. I've had him for 4 years. But during quarantine, I was like, what would I do without you? I was like,
Right.
thank God he's here. But then in July, he and I traveled to New Jersey to be with my family. So we did the first 4 months there. The next 4 months we've been here. So we've been on the East Coast hanging with the family. We'll stay through the holidays. But I have a whole new appreciation for like my home state of New Jersey. It's been, like you said, it's a pause that I never saw coming.
Right.
I've been working from here. It's been nice. But I also want to mention.
By the way, Jersey, always good to me, especially earlier in my career.
Wait, did you go to the Stress Factory?
Stress Factory, Rascals.
Yeah.
Just early gigs outside of NYC made me feel like, okay, if I can get laughs here, then especially being a Boston kid, and rivalries and
right.
I was like, all right, my comedy travels.
But that was like a huge thing in high school to do Friday night or Saturday night, go to the Stress Factory and get to see like stand-up comics that we had seen on TV.
Yeah.
Come to Jersey. That was awesome. So I want to mention also, right now you're in your home office, right? Which is like a museum almost. I've been there. It's like the coolest home office I've seen. It has all the memorabilia from your career. It's got cue cards from Letterman and Saturday Night Live. It's got platinum records. It's got tour posters, movie posters. Do you ever just go in that room, look around, and kind of take stock in what you've accomplished? Like just marvel at it?
Wow, man, that's it's interesting because for a number of years I did not, and I was away on some road gigs, and when I came back, my sister Courtney, who was living with me at the time, and a bunch of stuff ended up on the wall in here. And really my family kind of talked me to like, you should put these things up and celebrate them. And I think what happened for a very long time in my life was, I'm not going to like, I'll just dip into the therapy of it all as opposed to like a full on cannonball.
Okay.
I just had a lot of, I had grown up with such a low self-esteem that once I started to, that I didn't like looking back. I didn't like my yesterdays for a lot of my youth because it was hard. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. So I think for a number of years as my career started to flourish, there was still that thing in me of like, oh no, I can't look at the things that I've done and enjoy them. just put them aside and almost keep running away from everything, because the next thing was hopefully going to make me feel better about who I was.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, when I say running, it was like I had terrible acne as a kid. And I remember I used to run home, and I would run home, not necessarily because I was scared of whatever, like, I don't know, somebody going to beat me up. I just knew you couldn't see my acne if I was running.
Wow.
It was a blur to people. And I think in some ways, as long as I kept moving, you couldn't look at me and go, oh my God, you don't look great. You don't look right. So for a number of years, it was like a real instinct to just go and don't dwell. And I had to learn how to do that. I really had to learn. So the stuff that you see around me, yeah, there are moments now where I do walk in and I really let myself remember, oh, what was I, exploring or dealing with, or, the joy or the hardship that went with that film or that special.
Yep.
And then just the toys and stuff behind me, like, I had to, over the years, I had to grow up. And so what you see is like a smaller version of my old apartments had like, I think I had like 300 Star Wars figures from growing up, and they were fucking everywhere.
Do you
like
still have them?
my apartment was a planet. No, I do, but not up.
But not out. Okay.
This is still a lot. Like, some people look and go like Darth Vader masks and like, this is still all this stuff that helped to incite the dreamer in me to want to go for stuff. But no, this is a condensed version of the Willy Wonka factory that used to be around me years back.
Yeah, but I like that. I like that you're in touch with the kid that had these huge dreams.
Yeah.
I know one thing I know you were very proud of, and I bring this up because Alex Trebek passed away last week, but you were a clue on Jeopardy. And do you remember, I was watching Jeopardy that day. I filmed it and sent it to you.
Right.
What was that like to hear you?
Well, we're talking about the day where the clue was actually about my brother.
No. It was the one where it was about Dusty.
Okay, so there's two.
Oh,
because
okay.
the one that you sent me was the one I did a funny video of, like, me getting the answer wrong and not knowing my own information or the clue. And that one was very funny. But the one that I posted, if you check on my timeline, I think like a couple of days ago since Alex passed away, was I was also a clue where they brought up my brother.
Oh, man.
They brought up, like, comedian's brother incarcerated for this form of theft. And it was like, what is embezzlement? And then I shot this video of me, and I was watching the show with Kelsey at that time. So that was unbelievable. But the fact within minutes I could turn it into comedy, it was like I was like, Kelsey, this used to be such a disturbing moment in my life, that the fact that I can immediately go, what's funny about this? Yeah. Made me feel so great. But
what's it like to hear
that guy?
Alex Trebek, to hear him say your name? I mean, I'm bummed that I'll never get that chance to hear him say a clue of me. But in that first time he did it was about your voice in the movie Planet.
Yes.
And
it was truly glorious.
Yeah.
It was glorious. It was like, there's a few things that like are such staples of our life, that like being in a New York Times crossword puzzle once was, my dad sent me that. My dad used to love doing sent me that, or Jeopardy, or if you're like a Wheel of Fortune answer, like there's those things we grew up like as a small child watching, and then suddenly you're hearing Alex Trebek say your name, or I'm meeting Jerry Lewis and I'm going like, he's talking to me. He's, in the Jerry Lewis voice, I'm part of the conversation. Yeah. So those moments are really like the cherry on top of everything else. Everything else is construction and a lot of work to make the exterior look presentable for the show. That is a gift. To have Alex Trebek just say your name out of the blue is like, it really puts things in perspective, and I was so deeply appreciative of that.
Absolutely. And the contestant got it right, which is good too.
That would have been tough if everybody was like, oh. Right. And then if Alex had to say my name and then everybody went like, huh?
Okay, so we have to talk about before your career, the virtual table read that I alluded to earlier.
Oh yeah.
So you produced the most star-studded table read of the quarantine using the script from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, a movie from 1982, directed by Amy Heckerling, written by Cameron Crowe. It was a fundraiser for Core Response with Sean Penn. You mentioned it to me back in April, a month into quarantine, that you had something big in the works. I had no idea how big.
Me neither.
How did, before we even talk about the cast, how did you come up with the idea in the first place?
Okay, so Feeling Alive was the name of a virtual table read that a couple of years ago I was trying to put together to produce. What was it inspired by or going to be? Well, I'd done a bunch of like Jason Reitman live reads, and I'd done live reads like, because there's live reads for plays, comic books, there's live reads for things beyond just television and cinema. And I love shows like Around the Horn or Inside the Actor's Studio.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a version of it where it's like, oh, could this be like something that could be fun to put on television, where you could have, I don't know, like give an award at the end for here's the best, who went for it, who didn't show up today, who just a fun goof, but with interstitials that could be like informative. Tarantino, how did you come up with that scene or whatever?
Yeah.
And so I was playing around with it for a couple of years, but not really putting the pedal to the metal with it. And so when the quarantine happened, I knew Sean, and we'd been actually getting to know each other a little better because we were working on something different. And then everybody went into quarantine, and I called him up one day and said, I think I could put together something for CORE, his the philanthropy work that he does with this unbelievable organization that does all the COVID testing around the country, and all the way back to the Haitian earthquake and how they were, raise money to go out and, help with the doctors and just an amazing group of people.
Right.
And I said, I'd like to help. I'd like to be able to do something from my home. And he was like, what do you got? And I really honestly thought when I said Fast Times at Ridgemont High, he was going to be like, no.
Right.
But he couldn't have been more gracious and cool and tell me more. And when I kind of ran through the whole rigmarole of how I saw it going, he was like, all right, let's go for it. So it started to come together pretty quick, and then it fell apart once we started having once the protests started happening.
Right.
The world was changing again. It almost felt like it felt like now this feels selfish to just do this for CORE, because the world is so rapidly different just in a few short weeks.
Yeah.
So then somebody came up with the idea of like, well, let's reach out and work with the Reform Alliance. And I was like, oh my God, well, that's an amazing organization, helping people to get tested who are incarcerated, primarily from, impoverished areas. And so I was like, great. Now we're all going to get in this together and be able to raise money for both situations. And it took on a life of its own. It started to grow from there.
Yeah.
And very quickly, within a couple of weeks, we had pretty much like the beginnings of the all-star cast that came together. But I tell you, man, every time my phone rang or I got a text, it was like, who is it?
Yeah.
Right? Who's reaching out? Who wants to be involved? It was very, very cool.
I'm sure it snowballed. Once someone found out someone was involved, someone else got involved. So the cast, I'll mention: Jennifer Aniston, Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts, Matthew McConaughey, Morgan Freeman, Sean Penn, Shia LaBeouf as Spicoli, Sean Penn's character, Ray Liotta, Henry Golding, John Legend, Jimmy Kimmel, and Dane Cook. I mean, think about the amount of Oscars and Emmys collectively won by that group of people.
I wanted to put that in there somewhere and be like, wow, together we all have 27 Oscars and Emmys.
Exactly.
Just have my shelf empty. I'm like, I was going to clear one shelf. Just put a picture of me and Kimmel from one of my appearances.
Right. Exactly.
It was truly spectacular when everybody started to come together, and then people, like you said, were reaching out who unfortunately we just couldn't fit in there, or were like, can I help in some way? And then I saw it as like, all right, this could definitely be the series that I was hoping for.
Yeah.
And so now here we are, pushing that forward, and hopefully it'll come back in a new incarnation with a little bit of budget and a way to do some of the initial cool stuff. But for what it was, we raised a lot of money, and truly the thing that I'm proudest of is it just brought people wanted to see those people together, right? Mm-hmm. People wanted to see some of their favorite stars because they weren't seeing them in movies primarily. And it just felt like a nice, like the Eye of the Hurricane, where the sun comes out for a little bit.
Absolutely.
It felt like a real nice, joyous occasion. A lot of laughs.
Yeah.
And it wasn't without its difficulties. We had a lot of technical problems because we were having brownouts in California, and we were having just a number of issues in terms of like the timing of it. Things started getting shuffled. I didn't know if it was going to make it to the finish line, but the fact we did, and it was what it was, and Brad Pitt wore a Pirates hat, and
yeah, you would never know there were any technical difficulties watching it.
No, it really, that's a testament to Deviants, who did all the technical stuff, and those guys just polished it up and made it look absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, like you said, it was a source of light in a dark year, and it got over 1 billion worldwide views. Billion with a B. Crazy. So Jennifer Aniston's my favorite since I'm like 14 years old, going back to like the pilot of Friends. Even before that, she was on a sketch comedy show on Fox called The Edge. Remember that? So afterwards, I texted you like applauding emojis and mind blown emojis because it was crazy to see those people together. I remember I tweeted, I never thought I'd see Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt do the Phoebe Cates, Judge Reinhold bathroom scene.
Right.
That was epic. And it was also like full circle that Cameron Crowe created this character, Brad, 1982. 38 years later, Brad Pitt is playing Brad with his former wife, Jennifer Aniston, calling him Brad in the scene.
Yeah.
How did Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt, how'd you get them back together? Because that was kind of like your break the internet moment, right?
Well, I mean, I wish I could take somehow more credit for that. But,
yeah.
But truly, it was them. It was that, Jennifer had gotten wind of it through Sean Penn, and then CAA was helping out, and they reached out to Brad, and he just seemed like there was no drama in terms of like, they're pros, they're pals. So it was like they just came to play. There was there was really no, it was like a nothing burger in terms of how did we do that? It was like, no, they both loved, like we all loved the content. We loved that Sean wanted to be there as a person, a part of it, but also like handing the baton off to somebody that he could then sit back and watch encapsulate the character the way he did, to where to this day you go, how much was Sean as Spicoli? How much will, and it's, you'll never quite know. And Shia has done the same thing. For the rest of our lives, people are going to ask me, what do you know? How much? And I do know. But what I saw and what people witnessed was somebody who wanted to faithfully give him his interpretation of the character, to where you went, where does Shia end and Spicoli begin? And it was awesome, man. It was just unbelievable. And I really felt like, and then all the little things. Julia Roberts wore the bow tie, and Aniston brought the bikini under the shirt. And Brad, people don't realize, not only the hats, but he wore a green shirt because of Brad wore his green shirt. And everybody came in with, and Ray Liotta brought it, wanted to have like the scholarly and the tan suit, and
it was
could not have been. Yeah, man, I was sitting in the middle of it, like it was a reminder also to myself, that the pendulum continues to swing, and I've had it swing in places where I'm, I can look and say, wow, I'm a part of history and the history of comedy, and in some ways theater or cinema. And then also knowing that, man, there's lean years and there's hard years and disappointing years. And you have to always look at those as, no, that's actually where you're getting a lot of your information. The failure is where you're getting a lot of great data. And so to see it all swing back in during a hard year that I wanted to be celebrating something, and then sitting there with a number of people that I want to emulate, and now I can say I worked alongside and continue now to collaborate and corroborate with. It's just I'm very pleased, very proud of that.
Yeah, it was awesome. You acted in it too, and you and Julia Roberts acted opposite each other. Was that just surreal?
It was, and as a person I'm pretty, I'm very difficult on myself in anything I edit or put together outside of just straight stand-up comedy, when I'm just up there doing it and I know that I'm in it, and I don't like second guess. I'm always very present when it's stand-up. Anything else, when it's editing or looking at it again, I can always find a way to go, man, I could have done this or that, or the director brain in me said, I wanted to shoot it like this or that.
Yeah.
I loved my scene with her. I felt like it
So
just had all the guts of what I wanted and hoped that scene would be, even if we were possibly together doing it.
good.
So it was just great. And to hear the Julia Roberts laugh, I think I got a good,
Yes.
she has such a distinct laugh. To get that laugh out of her at one point in my head, I was like, you just made Julia Roberts laugh. And it was like legit.
Amazing. Yeah. Did you guys have to get Cameron Crowe's blessing to use the script? How did that work?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was cool because we got his blessing to actually use the original script. So yeah, that was the probably one of the like nerdy side items was like, oh, Cameron came in and said, not only can you use the script, but you can use my original script.
The original.
And so with Amy Heckerling saying, you have my full permission to, delve in any way you want, or casting or whatever that might be. And then for him to say, do you want to shoot from the original script or read from it? Was like, we could not have been more fortunate to have his complete, like the hug of Cameron Crowe in that moment to send us on our way.
Just amazing. Yeah. Especially growing up watching Cameron Crowe movies. Didn't you, I think you've mentioned that you auditioned for him for Almost Famous. Is that true?
Yeah. For the role, I think that Jimmy Fallon
Okay.
playing for the tour manager. I believe that was the tour manager.
Right.
And what I remember about that audition so cool was Cameron came in, he had a camcorder, and when we did the scene, he was like going around me, and like, it wasn't on a tripod. He was like directing me in the audition.
Wow.
And directing, and then going like this time, and then coming in the door and coming like, when I left there, I was like, regardless of if I'm the right person for this role, I felt like I just worked with Cameron Crowe. I was directed by Cameron Crowe. So that was like one of those, again, moments where you're driving home after going, I'm hopeful. I hope this works out. But if it doesn't, how cool. What a great story.
Exactly. I feel like that's a lot of Hollywood. It's a lot of things. People don't know the things you don't get that you still think of as an accomplishment,
Yeah, we could, that if we ever do a follow-up, it'll be 2 hours of things nobody's ever heard or will know. And It's like, you're going to tell stories and I'm going to tell stories that you're going to be like, wait, hold on, back up.
Oh, yeah.
You what? With Angelina Jolie was at your house? And like, what happened with that? In most things that start with what happened with that, it's just the universe finally goes like, I'm not conspiring with you on that anymore.
Right.
And yet you have a cool story for you and a few of your mates to be able to talk about.
But Cameron Crowe came back around in your life with the table read. You tweeted something I liked after. You wrote, I've dedicated my career to creating larger than life moments that in turn offer bigger than yourself opportunities to give back. Last night was one of those moments. Thank you all for making my year 30 in this weird 2020 a perfect 10. I like that. That was cool. And you also said, I've got to tell you, no one prepares you for a break the internet moment, but the come down just makes you want to fix it and start all over again. So that, I think, was your way of saying there's going to be more of those table reads.
Sure. I mean, I hope so. We're going to try. And if it's meant to be, then we'll, we're already talking to people, and there's other people that want to do, their scripts or.
Oh, cool.
We have nothing but enthusiasm, my team, for where that could go. So we'll see. Right now it's a little tricky because there's so many things online that I think we're also reaching that place of like where people don't want to always be reminded of the things that we're seeing online.
Yeah,
it's a bit of like what is that, like fatigue, Zoom fatigue, or whatever that might be. I mean, yeah. I think that if it's interesting, you'll watch it. If something's creative, I think it's worth seeing anywhere. But that fatigue does exist, so we're trying to move it away from feeling like it's just Zoom, but still provide a way to do it where, we can work with people around the world in some format like this. So we'll see how it comes, where it lands.
Nice. Well, yeah, like you said, it raised a lot of money for Core Response. If people want to donate, they can still donate. They can text CORE, CORE, to 707070. So I wanted to mention that. Yes. So I also want to give people a little backstory. So we've known each other for a while, but we actually first met 18 years ago, almost 18 years ago, January 2003. I've shown you this. It was at one of your comedy shows at Caroline's in New York City. We hung out after. Here's that picture. That's you, me, my brother-in-law Rich, my sister Michelle. Your shirt says "I lie to girls." Uh, but yeah, so we actually met. You still do that where you do meet and greets and you kind of make a connection with people, and then they kind of stick with you for life. They follow your career.
Well, I think that people just, I mean, I grew up knowing that, people appreciate that handshake moment.
Yeah,
It's not just, hey, you put on a great show, but you find that, you're becoming a part of people's roadmap in their life.
right.
When they put their hard-earned dollar into you entertaining them, and then you do that, you're providing them escape from who knows what, stress or depression, or maybe they're celebrating something that, a victory of their own, and they've chosen you to have that moment of, we're going to have a few drinks and just like let loose. And
Yeah,
so I take that to me is like, that's a responsibility,
yeah,
beyond just me showing up and giving a show. I've always looked at that as in some ways like more politics, the
yeah,
politics of being elected somebody's favorite comedian or whatever that might be. I just I've always had a real appreciation for um, uh, that grassroots kind of building of a fan base, and never forgetting that, when people come and see you, they're driving sometimes hours, they're paying for valet, babysitters. It's
mhm,
not just a ticket to your show.
yeah.
It's a moment of their life that they're going to change their whole scheduling to hope that you come out and deliver in some way for them. And I remember when I first started doing meet and greets, it was like so many, man, I don't, I'm not trying to be negative, but like there was like, I got so much shit, like especially sometimes by my peers and people that I respected, say, oh, it's pandering,
Mm,
and I was like, no, I just think that like that the old skulking around comedian in the back of the dark club, and you don't get to know him, and it's just, I never like really subscribed to that.
that's
And so
cool.
I just, yeah, I felt like the meet and greet and doing all that stuff was my way of, and also like no better way to learn how you're, growing in your own comedy than talking to your fans and letting them get to know you. And it doesn't change the integrity of who you are. Some people say, oh, but then you're trying to cater or placate. No, no. If anything, it's helping you to define even more so when you're right or when you're wrong, and being
Yeah,
able to relinquish that, right? I
yeah,
don't love that idea always of like somebody just putting it out to a test audience or whatever and saying, oh, it's just based on the numbers. No, sometimes people, a test audience could look at your TV show or your movie. Maybe they don't like you.
right.
People forget this. Maybe they don't like your reputation. Maybe they don't like that they don't know you at all. And that skews them for your art that you're putting out. Now, what if you walked in the room and met everybody and got to know them, and suddenly they felt like there was an availability to be more honest? Well, you might find that they go like, now based on knowing him, I actually appreciate, oh, he isn't like that? That's even harder work than I saw. I thought he was
Yeah,
like that all the time. So I took on a completely different idea of what that meant to be in touch with your fan base. And
yeah,
still to this day, I feel like that's a better avenue for people that are playing the long game, is
mhm,
to be able to kind of like understand you're not always going to be great. You're not always going to deliver. But if they understand that you're giving everything you got, they'll come back. They won't give up on you so quickly.
yeah. That's cool. Well, we still talk about the jokes from that set back in 2003. My brother-in-law Rich
Oh
still
man,
talks about the
what's the
BK
one that
Lounge.
stands out?
My brother-in-law talks about the BK Lounge
Oh
still,
my
the
god.
pickles and the sauce and all those jokes. He still does it. And
Yeah.
my sister and her friends love the routine about girls when they just want to go dance, and
Yes.
they'll put their purses and their shoes in the middle and just
That's
dance.
right.
And they still talk about it.
How cool is it to be able to talk about comedy all these years later, when growing up all I was doing was quoting my favorite
Right.
stand-ups and hoping that, man, if you could have a bit or a couple of bits or maybe an album that stands the test of time, that somehow can be funny 10, 20, 30 years later.
Yeah.
So to be able to like still sit and go, hey man, these and trust me, every day somebody writes me something every day. And sometimes it's the main bits that everybody knows. Sometimes it's like deep cuts that I don't even remember
Yeah.
putting out there. And it's man, it's just like that feather in your cap to go like, wow, those things are still funny and still quoted,
Yeah.
by people a lot. And it's very, very cool.
Well, there was a timelessness to it. Like it was stuff we grew up with, the Kool-Aid Man,
That's right.
Burger King, that stuff never
Yeah.
gets old,
That was like the nostalgia
Yeah.
album. That
Yep.
first 2003, you said, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 1 to 3 to 4 was in between like Harmful to Retaliation.
Yes.
And it was really because the first album was everything I'd worked on from 1990 up until, yes, a lot of that was like the nostalgia chunk of material. And didn't get into the more, I don't know, I guess relationship stuff and all that until the second album. But yeah, it's still, I was in a grocery store, getting stuff for COVID a few months ago. And I had a guy from the next aisle, like start yelling one of my comedy routines. And then he came around the corner. He's like, I saw you, man. I saw you. And I ran over there and said that whatever he yelled, something from the argument in the grocery store bit. And I was like, I thought I was just being stalked by a Looney Tune. And I'm like, oh, wait, that was my bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. Well, so that was when we first met, but we became friendly later on. It was actually through like Jessica Simpson during the Employee of the Month days. I had worked with her on some music videos. Then again through game nights, which is like this subculture in Hollywood. Pantera Sarah has game nights. Chris Evans has game nights. We play running charades. You and Ben BLEAV used to come to Sarah's together, and that's how I met Ben. And Ben was like the first person I met who had a podcast. I think he was doing a podcast before anybody. And then you and I finally got to work together a few years ago on a Netflix documentary called The American Meme, directed by Burt Marcus. That came out December 2018, but we actually started filming it 2016. And it's about fame and social media. And the first thing Burt and I did when he came to me with his idea was, who do we know that utilize social media for their career, early on? You were the first person I thought of for that documentary because I knew what you had done with MySpace. And, the documentary talks about Paris Hilton with Instagram and Brittany Ferlin with Vine. I had actually just gotten Buddy. He was there when we filmed it, Blind Dragon. But when American Meme came out, you were really complimentary about how it turned out. I remember you and Kelsey both liked it because you did it kind of not knowing exactly what it was going to be. But explain how you used MySpace because you were always in my top 8. I remember when I had it.
Yep.
But
yeah, MySpace was really I guess that was one of the first, successful social media platforms that, you could be in everybody's homes, right? Pretty much anytime you fired up your computer, that was your TV show that was on and that people could tune into. And I used it like that. And how did I do that was MySpace used to have something that I thought was really awesome that I don't see a lot of apps even using today, which is very strange to me, which was there was a online now that would kind of light up.
Oh, right. That's right.
And I know some apps have like, oh, if you see a green thing, that means that but there was something really special about seeing online now and knowing like at that time, since there was really no competition, there was whatever, like Friendsters or whatever, but nobody was doing it like MySpace.
Yeah.
And so the fact that every college kid had MySpace, and when I went on, it would say online now. And then right underneath that, I had my AOL Instant Messenger, which would be the equivalent, I guess, today. What was AOL Instant Messenger? Like the equivalent of like texting somebody today.
Yeah.
Right? And so I have my AOL Instant Messenger screen name under online now. So what would happen is I'd go online and people could, I guess, DM me. I don't know if it was just inbox at that time. Or they could send me an AOL Instant Messenger. And I would just chat with everybody. Anybody who sent me a message, and I'd shoot the shit, send links. Maybe I uploaded some comedy to a Napster or LimeWire or Kazaa, one of these early. And I would do the same meet and greet situation, but online. And I'd pretty much spend 23 hours of the day doing that. I mean, all day, sometimes all day. Just watch TV, watch sports, writing people, play some video games, write people during, send my link. and realizing that I was in a fast lane on a highway that nobody even knew about yet.
Right. And you were
Not only
promoting.
was I in the diamond lane, but I'm on a road that like nobody's really even discovered. And there's like me and Lenny Kravitz. Like me, Lenny Kravitz, and the U.S. Army had like the 3 coolest websites at that moment. And I was utilizing MySpace as a congruent to keeping everybody informed on that. And it was amazing. And unlike today, where social media influencing and all that is really like it's algorithm based, and it's and there's a lot of things impeding on the true pipeline of how you get online now, and then you're just with people. There's a lot more hoops and a lot more politics.
Right.
At that time when I did it, it was just like straight into your home where I could entertain you in some way, shape, or form. And it was probably about 3 or 4 years of just, nobody impeding on that, and really no negativity even around it. Just real great.
And you would promote your stand-up show. So I guess if people, when you were coming to their city, you could send them the info, they would buy tickets, and you would sell out your shows, right?
Yeah, that's when morning radio DJs started not liking me very much, because I hated morning radio. I hated doing it. And no, not because I didn't want to get up early and go in. It wasn't like a lazy, I was probably up anyway. I'm just like, it was more like, I want to reinvent the game. I don't want to play the game. I'm always interested in how can I try to, I think I said years ago, like, don't try to level the playing field, create a playing field.
Yeah.
Go out, and if you have to like dig up an old lot and put down the sod and grow the grass and water it, make your own fucking playing field.
That's great.
And so for me, being able to get on MySpace, and in one click, I sold out an arena. In one click, I could go, I'm at Madison Square Garden. And at that time, again, realizing there wasn't any boss level behind the scenes that's going, oh, he's using our algorithm. We need to, if he wants to boost the post, it's going to cost $9,000. Like, there was none of that. It was, and so I made a lot of enemies in terms of morning radio, only because I didn't have to show up. I didn't need to go out there and say, please come to my show. It was already sold out.
Yeah. That's amazing.
It was, yeah, man, it was, and I was learning as I was going. It wasn't like I came there with I wasn't seeing the future, but I was on the cusp as a person who grew up loving tech, that this was the future.
Amazing.
And anybody who came to me and said, like, there were people that actually believed the internet in that form was a fad. There were high-level people, big, powerful people that will remain nameless, and they would say to me, like, I mean, I get it. You'll probably always have the college kids will kind of like this. And I was like, the fucking newspaper is going to be gone in 10 years. Yeah. Like there'll be no physical CD in maybe 4 or 5 years. But at that time, my digital sales were like 4%. And I was like, I did a record deal, and I remember telling them, this record in 2 years, it's going to be 80% digital. And it did.
You were right.
Everybody caught up. I was already like, I use this to the hilt, and I still love it, and I still find myself engaging and looking for new and interesting ways to cultivate it. But man, to be there at the forefront of it was just so fun.
Yeah, I remember it so vividly too. I could remember going on MySpace, exactly what you said, and finding out about comedy shows and stuff. It felt like our own like thing, like we were running it,
Yeah, exactly. It was a shorthand conversation, with, I was a college-aged kid talking to my fans, but you're going, okay, these are the people that are going to be the future and everywhere in a few years. So why not come up with them?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, the first time I saw your comedy, this is interesting too, because it's another vivid memory. So I graduated from Syracuse in 2002. moved out to LA that summer, and I was
Okay.
living at the Oakwood apartments. You know the Oakwood apartment.
Yeah, I do.
So it's kind of like a rite of passage. It's like uh, kids who are new in town. It's
Right.
like, little kids for pilot season with their parents, and like guys who got kicked out of the house who are getting divorced who need a quick place to stay, basically.
Yeah, it's a
It's a
place
mix.
that if you were to look at it's like the numbers, the statistics of who makes it and who doesn't in
Yeah.
the industry as a whole can
Yeah.
be boiled down to that apartment building.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, yeah. And so I was living at Oakwood, and I remember flipping channels one day, and I stumbled upon the Comedy Central Presents special.
Mm.
And I remember, like, I had never seen kind of like an energy like that before. You're like all over the place, climbing the walls. I watched the whole thing. And
Right.
then this is, like you said, back when you would go online to find out who someone was, and you had a website and you could
Right.
order the Harmful If Swallowed CD directly from you, independently from your website.
That's right.
So I got that, and I used to drive around in LA traffic, listening to that album.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because I can remember finding the special in the Oakwood apartments. And so then when my sister and brother-in-law came to visit, Laugh Factory had the Harmful If Swallowed album cover up, and they would
Right.
advertise that you were performing there. So I brought them to see you there. That was their first time seeing you. We all
Right.
obviously had a great time, laughed out loud. So that's why when I came back to New York to visit, we went to Caroline's and saw you again.
Yeah.
And that's how it sort of built, very organically, kind of
Sure.
discovering you. And so was that Comedy Central Presents, was that the first big break? Did that feel like the first time people were finding you?
I think that was probably in terms of um, being a fully formed version of
Yeah.
my stand-up had gone. I had breaks. I did like Letterman years earlier, like a late night
Right.
show.
Right.
But I'm in a suit. I'm kind of like playing ball their way as well. It's like, and you would have to kind of, or I did like a premium blend, which was a
Right.
comedy show around 97, 98 on Comedy Central. That was, like short form
I remember
sets,
that.
7-minute sets.
Yeah.
And so again, you had to like tailor. A lot of things were tailored, it's not like you're going like, I'm going to create the set, or this is what this is going to look like, or they just kind of tell you, show up here on this day.
Yeah.
We want you to only do this material. And then you're like, can I wear a leather jacket? And they're like, nah, it doesn't go with our lighting, but
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
And so I had breaks that certainly helped me to keep going, help keep me above the poverty line.
Yeah.
But yes, the Comedy Central half hour special was the first time it was really people able to see like a fuller version of my show. And then also there was so much bonus content that didn't end up airing on Comedy Central that we then put on my first release. Harmful If Swallowed had a bonus DVD.
Right.
Of all the unreleased footage, which I had begged them for. They were going to that was going to end up on the editing, the cutting room floor. I said, please let me have my special. I'll put it in with the record deal we've just put together, and let me have a sticker that says previously unreleased footage. They fought me on it. They didn't believe in that. They said the comedy album was dead. They said nobody's ever going to buy a comedy album. It's a waste of their money, my time. They actually, one person said, all this album is ever going to be is a business card for people to actually come see you. And so they acquiesced and gave me the footage. And yes, it was really probably for the 2 years after that, straight through 2 years, people seeing that DVD or the special and then getting the rest of the content.
Yep.
And it gave me my 15 minutes of fame. We're going to start right there.
Yep.
It was either going to last a couple of years and, whatever. I'd go home with a nice check. Or I could maybe try to, again, I'm looking at like long game, like, okay, how can I use this moment in time now to try to show people that I'm here not just to visit.
Okay, well let's talk about the inside the actor studio of it. How did you get to that point and how it 2002? Take us back to the beginning. You started out in Boston. You mentioned welfare kid from Boston.
Yeah.
What was your upbringing like? I know you had a tight-knit family, your parents, your sister.
I thought we were rich.
You did.
I thought we were, yeah, I really did. I thought we were not rich, but yeah, no, I probably thought we were rich because
Well, there's something sweet about that too. It's almost like you had everything you needed. You thought.
it was confusing. It was confusing. See, because what I didn't realize that my mom and dad they were grinders. They were hustlers.
Mm,
They were hustlers, not in the old school way of like you're hustling somebody. No, they were just like, okay, how can I turn this dime into a quarter with my ability? And so we were like a low income family living in a middle class part of town, but my mom is cleaning toilets and doing housekeeping and cleaning off, emptying people's trash and office space
mm.
overnight every night to keep us in a comfortable position. And so, but by the way, I'm 15 years old and wondering why I'm paying board in my own house.
Right.
I'm 15 and my mom's like teaching me, no, you need to contribute. You need to, yeah, okay, you made $50 selling the Boston Globe newspapers. You need to kick in $7 to the house. Like, and she had me doing this at 15, 16. My whole family, we all had to pay board.
Wow.
It taught us that we had to, be responsible and do our fair share. And we did it kicking and screaming sometimes. But as I got older and started to understand, like, wait, my mom's got a Corvette, but she's cleaning toilets. She's putting a vacuum in the back of a Corvette. I'll never forget seeing her. Sometimes I'd see my mom drive by and people would be like, wow, your mom's got a Corvette. It was her dream car since she was a kid. And she worked and bought herself a used Corvette cleaning toilets.
Wow.
That was the heart of who my mom was. We're going to live in this house. We're going to afford it. We're going to be able to, even though none of us have really done anything to make a impactful income, if you work your tail off, you can have nice things.
Nice.
And so coming out of Boston, when I first started doing stand-up 1990 and did my first open mic at Catch Rising Star in Harvard Square.
Yeah.
I had all that same kind of, all the contributing to, my home growing up, 14, 15. I was so prepared and ready to go like, all right, this is what I put aside. This is what I need to do to work harder, him and her, and both of these, that sketch comedy group and these guys. How can I double up on it? Okay, they're only driving 50 miles to it. I'll drive to fucking Burlington, Vermont for my $75. Like,
Wow.
I was doing anything and everything to let the locals know I'm not fooling around here. I'm here to win.
Did you have to wait till you were 18? Did you try to do it earlier to be
I waited. I graduated. I told I was like, I knew I wasn't going to college. Told my family I was like, I want to graduate high school. The reason I really wanted to graduate high school is because my mentor was Frank Roberts, and he was my high school drama teacher.
Oh, okay.
So I wouldn't have left high school anyways because I adored him, and I loved that he was teaching me how to find confidence and love myself as a person and as a performer. And the stage time in class and the plays we were doing were preparing me to feel brave enough to try stand-up. So high school graduated, same year, 1990. And then it was, open mics and doing anything I could to get stage time while I was working at a pizza place. I had a snowplow business. So I was working with a snowplow business, plowing snow,
Wow.
selling newspapers. And I was a nursing home, a dietary aide,
My
and
God.
working at a video store and doing stand-up at night.
Wow. You had 5 jobs basically. That's quite a work ethic.
I was always working. If I wasn't working, I was probably playing a little Nintendo
Right.
as a break.
Yeah.
But no, always formulating a plot as to how to
Get there.
get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you'd been watching George Carlin, Richard Pryor, right? Growing up, kind of dreaming of that life. And
I was watching a lot of HBO specials.
Yeah.
Watching Evening at the Improv stuff. Listening to old comedy albums that either we had laying around or that I would find at the Arlington Library, and insatiable appetite for comedy knowledge and wanting to be in that world. SNL, watching Johnny Carson, who was a late night talk show host growing up, always had comedians on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be blunt, it was like I thought I have nothing else in this world that I am passionate about and that I love,
I
except
love
video games, which at the time there was no esports or, trust me, if that was around at that time, I don't know, man. That was a close second for like, I think I could monetize this. I think
Right.
there's a way to make a living. But I said, if I'm going to do this, I want to try to come up with the best possible scenario to where I can win, I can win big.
Yeah. Well, I've heard you say that you saw Martin Short on Saturday Night Live, and he just looked so happy, like he was having so much fun, and you wanted to feel that way. Is
Yeah.
that
Well,
true?
it was the other side of it. I just wanted to belong somewhere.
Yeah.
I wanted to belong. I wanted to feel acceptance. I felt like all those comedians, well, this is something I learned later, but I thought, oh, wow, all these comedians seem so happy with themselves.
Right.
They all seem so well adjusted in, the business of show. I didn't know how much of it really was like putting on your game face, and like anything in life, you bring a lot of emotion that people don't see to whatever it is
Mhm.
that you're trying to fortify. But at
Yeah.
that time, it just felt like a place that I could belong.
Yeah. So that first open mic night, didn't they call somebody else's name and you just took the slot?
Yeah, they did. Oh wow, you did your research,
I know
man.
my
Oh,
stuff.
wow. Yeah, they did. I was there just to watch, and somebody had signed up on the sign up sheet the week before and didn't show up. And when the host said, "Where's Ernest Glenn?" There was like 3 seconds of like me and everybody looking around, waiting for Ernest Glenn's hand to go up, and he didn't put his hand up. And suddenly, I'm like looking at my own hand in the air.
Amazing.
The host said, "You're Ernest Glenn." I said, "Yep." I was ready. I was ready. The only thing that was keeping me from signing up and just doing it was, you know, just really being a doubting Thomas inside myself and not allowing I knew I could do it, but I didn't have the worth to go stand up and say I can do it. I just
Yeah.
wanted somebody to magically make me up there. And then suddenly that basically happened.
Yeah.
Went up and I did my first set as Ernest Glenn. Got my laughs. Didn't pull the cord out of the mic like a lot of new guys. It stayed intact. And I
Yeah.
said good night. I got a nice round of applause at the end from the 35 or 45 some odd people. I still can feel how my heart was beating in my chest as I walked off the stage. And I walked outside and tears like formed in my eyes.
Huh.
I just leaned against the wall outside of that club and was like, I did it. I did it. I did this impossible thing. And now I have to do it again.
Yeah.
It was the beginning.
And you found your calling in that moment, do you think?
I did. Oh yeah, I definitely found my calling. I found my purpose. And it was the beginning of what I knew was going to be a lot more work. It was not going to come as easy as I knew right away. I'm like, oh my goodness, all these people the greats I'm watching, what made them great is they don't let you see they never let you, see the cracks, never let them see you sweat, even though of course you're prior sweating like crazy when you
Yeah.
but
Right.
that's the markings of somebody who is a professional in their craft, right?
Yeah.
Is being prepared for any situation. And I knew I had a lot of those nights to get there. But once you get that first one done and you go, I can do this, then you're off to the races.
I love that. Yeah. And so you mentioned you were an insecure kid. So what was that like to have this confidence on stage, but like this insecurity in your real life off stage? How'd you manage that?
I used to watch like Superman growing up with Christopher Reeves.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I'm Clark Kent. Like in real life, I felt like more like him, like bumped into and,
Wow.
I felt like that guy. But on stage, I felt like Superman.
Awesome.
It was all there. It was that thing that happens where you go up there and suddenly fear and failure and it goes away, and you're just something. I almost want to say like you feel physically like something has pulled you together, like something has bound you right in that moment. One night I watched Robin Williams walk into the Laugh Factory, and as I got to know him a little bit over the years of performing with him, and he would come in, he'd be kind of like very meek is the word I would describe, like the way he stood and his his posture, he's like almost like no shoulders, and he came in and there was almost like I could almost always see like trepidation in him, and he was just such a fascinating individual off stage. And then I'd stand next to him, and they'd say, "We have a special guest, Rob Williams," and I would watch him from right next to me walk past me, and I'd watch him go to the stage, and I'd watch him physically grow. And when he got on stage, it was like he was literally 2 feet taller.
Amazing. He
I have
became
goosebumps.
that guy. Yeah.
Like something magical happened. And then he'd come off stage after, and it was like, and he'd shrink back to
Reality.
this reality. And that's
Wow.
a little bit of how it felt for me. Being up on stage was like, and then I learned as years went on, those first few years, 91, 2, and 3, I really started to learn that it was like, this guy that I am on stage is everybody who I want to be off stage. That's who I want to be him.
Right.
I want to have timing and feel like I have the right thing to say. And I know how to, a heckler is basically a bully in real life. I want to be able to know I can, I want to be able to own when I make a mistake on stage. I know I said the wrong word, and being able to own it, and like all those things that I could not do and didn't have the ability to like lean into who I was off stage. I learned all of those fundamentals from my version of myself on stage.
Incredible. Yeah. It's because it could have gone the other way and you could have had stage fright, but it just didn't.
No stage fright. Never had stage fright. Nothing. No.
So cool.
None. I have friends and I know people who deal with it, and it's, man, that sucks. But
yeah.
No, I was always a person that once I got up there, it all, like some combination inside of me was like locked into place, and I just felt like I got this. 1,000 people, 20,000 people. I've done 70,000 people.
Yep.
I've never had that fear once I'm up there of what I'm capable of doing.
It's so cool. And so you also tell a story in your act about when you were first starting out, you drove down to New York City from Boston with your mom for a stand-up gig. And the stand-up gig itself didn't go very well, but you were in New York City and you saw Madison Square Garden.
Right.
And tell that story.
Well, my sister Kelly had seen Steve Martin perform at Madison Square Garden. She'd also seen him perform at Boston Garden. And I was 14 or 15 at the time. And Kelly came home and said, I just saw Steve Martin. I want to know everything. Tell me. I want to know, how is this, that? And she described the show and the white suit and all the things that she saw him do. And I said to Kelly, I'm going to perform at Madison Square Garden someday. You're going to come see me perform at Madison Square Garden. And she looked at me, kitchen table, drinking Crystal Light or whatever I was sipping on. And she said, "Is that right?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I just know it." And it's like, it's weird, man. It's like, my mom I called her nickname was my compass, because she always knew the future and my direction before me. And I would sometimes say, like, "Mom, I feel like you see the future." And sometimes I feel like I do too. And she described it like, she goes, "No, I don't think I know the future." She said, "But like when the sheets are blowing in the wind back in the backyard and you've got like the clothespins," she goes, "and every once in a while a sheet comes up and you just see a little bit past it." She goes, "I can do that."
Wow.
And I've always had that. Just, I don't know what it is, man. I don't know if it's some ripple in the universe. I don't know, like time, space continuum. Maybe we're in a simulation and the coding's a little funky.
Yeah, it's like a glimpse almost.
A glimpse.
Yeah.
A glimpse. And when I have that glimpse, to this day, I call it my golden gut. If I ever call my friends up and say, I have a golden gut on something, and I've probably only actually used that term maybe in my own career, like I've had a golden gut maybe a dozen times.
Okay, that's good.
But when I have it and I see that glimpse, or I just know. I know something.
Yeah.
And I had it for the live read. The moment I talked to Sean, and I kind of saw that ripple of how it's going to play out. But long story short was realizing when I said that to Kelly that was my future and that I needed to do the work to get there. Mm-hmm. And then when my mom and I drove to New York and I walked by Madison Square Garden, and I did this several times, but on this one particular story you're talking about, and I just said out loud to the building, I literally said, like, "Don't go anywhere, Madison Square Garden." I didn't want them to demolish it or some weird shit happens to them. because I knew I was going to come back there, and that was going to be, for myself and for my fans, that was going to be me saying, I told you I wasn't in this to do mediocre. I did this to be one of the best at this of all time. I want to be one of the greats. Now that's up for everybody else to discuss and argue about. And, I've been written in and out of history and up and down and off cool lists and on hot lists. I don't know sometimes I don't know perception versus what I do know sitting here, which is to be able to take it to that place and perform and deliver. Nobody can take that away from me,
right?
Or my fans, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So after Boston, you moved to New York, and then you moved to LA. You were doing stand-up for the next 5 years, and you found yourself in LA on a multicam sitcom called Maybe This Time in 1995. I actually remember watching that show. It was you and Betty
You're
White.
The one?
I watched multicam sitcoms were my jam in the 90s.
That was a Saturday night, 8 o'clock multicam sitcom. I think you and maybe 3 other people were watching that.
Well, I had the VHS. If I went out, I would have the VHS set to just tape whatever sitcoms were on. But it starred you, Betty White, Marie Osmond.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a bigger TV legend than Betty White? She's 98 years old now. She's won Emmys for Mary Tyler Moore Show, Golden Girls. That's not a bad co-star for your first TV gig. Yeah. How did that happen? How did that come about?
Well, and keep in mind, I'd never been on a TV set.
Right.
I never worked in television. I wasn't a child, actor outside of, plays in high school.
Yeah.
It came about, Michael Jacobs was the producer on that.
Right. Boy Meets World.
And he saw me in San Francisco I was in a comedy contest up there, and he happened to be at the show that night. And they knew that they wanted to add a grandson character for Betty White. They really wanted to. The show was skewing so much older that I think they just wanted some young eyes on it, and they knew that I had a pretty good college crowd.
Yeah.
So he approached me after the show, asked me to come down to LA. I went down to LA. I met at ABC. It was ABC Disney at the time, was just merging, and sat in a room with like 9 people. It was like it was kind of wild. It was also my introduction to the industry and an office building in. On the Warner Brothers lot, and walking past movie sets and looking in and seeing, oh wow, that's the whatever the other show down. I've seen that show. I know that piece of prop.
Yeah.
So it was wild, man. And walked into the office and had a great meeting with everybody. And I was really honest. I was like, I don't have a lot of experience in television, but I'm a fast learner, and I know that I can do the job, but you just have to help me through it. And they said, there's nobody better than Betty White to help you to acclimate to that. And she could not have been more kind to me and everybody, and Maria as well.
I believe
but Betty was just walked me through a lot of, I learned certain things that, going up at the end of a scene, or, or little things that you don't want to, do, facing where you don't want to face on a TV show, just things that I wouldn't have known organically, and she was there to help me through. So it was great, because I was also learning on a show that was not a popular show. So it wasn't, if it crashed and burned, which essentially it did, but if it did, then it wasn't going to be my fault.
Yeah. But that was still like a master class. How cool.
It was absolutely, I think I ended up doing 10 episodes. I don't remember. I think I did 10, but yes, every day for those many weeks of living at the Holiday Inn way out in Burbank, like at the very far, like I didn't even know really where Hollywood was. I thought I was in Hollywood, but I was at the outskirts and the wastelands of Burbank. But then driving to that studio every day and having that experience and working with particularly, Betty.
So cool.
Yeah, I learned everything I needed to know. And I got like suddenly Susan and other sitcoms that I got to do after that. And it was just like, okay, now I know what I'm doing, because I learned from the greatest sitcom television actor of all time.
Of all time, yeah. Have you seen her since? Did you guys see each other again?
I haven't seen her. No, I did some years back, but I haven't seen her in a number of years now. But when I saw her last, it's just the same Betty that I met on day one.
So cool.
Beautiful, bright, super keen, intelligent. That documentary, if anybody has seen it, there's a wonderful documentary about her life and legacy. And,
Yeah.
a lot of firsts with her. She broke a lot of barriers. And, if for the affable person you see on TV, she was also like a powerhouse behind the scenes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's on Netflix, The First Lady of Television.
First lady of television. Yeah.
Yeah. We were on a family vacation when I was like 11, 1991, and we went to see Golden Girls being filmed. So I just remember watching them and just being like, this is epic. Like these legends in front of us just, they barely needed any takes. They were so good. They nailed it the first time.
My favorite side story of that, and you can see this when you go back and watch Golden Girls reruns, which of course we all do.
Yeah.
And I learned this from Betty. There were certain lines that sometimes they would change a line last minute, and you couldn't always retain every line all the time because the writers would say this next time we do the take or whatever. And so Betty taught me a little trick they did on Golden Girls. She said she took her coffee mug, and inside the coffee mug there was a little piece of white tape with a line written on it. And every once in a while, she taught me, if you can't remember that line, just take your prop and then take a sip and read it before you get to that line. And so she taught me that, which you can see scenes in Golden Girls or in our show where we did that. We had the coffee cup. You could see us read our line. Or they used to hide it on sugar packets on Golden Girls.
Oh, my God.
And so they would do this thing where they'd hold the sugar packet and go, Blanche, I want you to – and they were reading it. And then they just make it like they were putting the sugar in their coffee.
Oh, that's great. I love TV trivia like that.
Little life hacks from Betty White.
Amazing. Yeah, I got to go. They did her Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton in LA. They came to her.
Oh.
So I got to go to that. I was like front row. I got to ask a question at the end. It was awesome. She's
Amazing.
she's the coolest. So then another watermark that you hit, April 12th, 1999, you were on The Late Show with David Letterman. And then again, March 14, 2001. So what was that like to be on Letterman? Because I'm sure you grew up watching him and idolizing him.
Yeah. I think the dates, I don't know where you got that, but I think the dates might have been a little wrong on that because Letterman was closer to 96 and 98.
Was it? Oh, so then maybe you did it again after.
Yeah, no, I did. Yeah, I did other appearances to promote that show or Employee of the Month.
Yeah.
First stand-up sets were mid-90s, and then, several other times for whatever I was promoting later. But to go back and then to actually be able to sit with Dave on that show and on that panel was I started to feel that comfortability of like, oh, now I'm getting to that place in my career where I'm I'm a made guy. I'm in. I'm in because I have made money for the machine. The machine is making some money off me. I'm making some money off the machine of me. And it was all starting to click as I was becoming, kind of bona fide in the industry as like, oh, take a chance on this guy and you might be able to get a couple of mortgage payments and everybody's going to walk away happy. And what you're really hoping is, oh, wow, we might actually create something wonderful as well, which there's a lot of people that it isn't just about the money. Yes, of course, everybody wants to walk away and make sure their investment is taken care of. But I was entering a time in my career where my stand-up was branching out into possibilities for other people to, benefit from me and vice versa.
Do you remember that first Letterman appearance? Like, do you remember thinking like, I can't believe this is happening?
Well, the first Letterman appearance that I got stand-up wise.
Yeah. When was that?
Was maybe like the first time I'd ever really had like an out-of-body experience performing to where I was standing on stage and telling myself this is where the Beatles and Elvis Presley played. Actually, the story that I put in the book is I say I remember I took the mic and the crowd's applauding right after the first intro that Dave gave me, and I remember thinking to myself, this is where the Beatles and Elvis stood, right here. And then I had a second thought before I started, which was, yeah, but Molly the dancing bear was also here. Right. You didn't see Molly too much more after she took a dump exactly. On the stage. So It was like, Beatles, Elvis, Molly the dancing bear, let's do this.
Yeah, that's right.
So the first time, like to be able to get through that and to receive the applause and see, I remember I looked over and saw Paul over with the band, and Paul was like giving me a big, and I could hear him laughing more than I could hear Dave. I could hear Paul had a very distinct laugh in the dark during my set. I was like, wow, man, I can see Dave's over there watching. I got Paul laughing, the crowd's laughing. You know, I felt like I was really delivering, and that changed my career because I started getting college gigs,
right?
Like, and making some significant money, like more than what it was costing me to get there, type money, you know, and being able to then fold that into like reinvesting it into my business and myself.
Nice.
So yeah, it just to this day, anytime I see Dave or, you know, if I have the chance, I always
bow down.
Yeah.
And you've got those cue cards in that office that you're in from when you were on Letterman, which is
I
so
do.
cool.
My very first Letterman appearance, I turned my whole computer if I could, but my very first Letterman appearance, you know, he reads off the cue card, and I asked I saw the union guy walking out with all the cue cards. I said, "Hey, can I have my cue card?" And I remember this. I'll never forget. This guy stopped. He goes, "What?" And I go, "The intro. Can I have that?" And he just looked at me and he went, "I gotta ask somebody."
I guess I said yes.
I'm never gonna see that. And then 2 weeks later, I got a signed David Letterman signed my cue card, and it came to me framed. And we're very excited that our next guest is making his network television debut with us tonight. He can be seen in Boston at the Comedy Connection, October 3rd and 4th. Please welcome the very funny Dane Cook. And
so cool.
Hanging on the wall.
I love that. So then after that, 2000, we mentioned the Comedy Central Presents special. We talked about Harmful If Swallowed. So at that point, the dream is starting to come to fruition. 2003, you got a role in a Farrelly Brothers movie called Stuck on You.
I did?
Didn't you? I hope so. With Matt Damon and Greg Kinnear.
I don't think I made that, though. I don't think my scene made it.
Really? It got cut?
That's right, yeah. That's why it's like, when you said that, I'm like, I don't know if I am. I mean, I know those guys really well.
Yeah.
But no, I did a scene with Matt Damon that didn't make.
It's got to be on the DVD extras, no?
I don't even know.
Wow.
I never looked for that one.
It just went away.
I was so bummed that I wasn't like. I felt like at that time I was starting to get to that place in my comedy career. I was like, I was really looking for my like leading man roles.
Right.
And so I wanted to work with those guys so bad that I was like, I'll take anything. And then when they cut it, I was like, I'm never watching this damn movie. I think I saw Bobby Bobby Farley and walking down the street in Canada about 5 or 6 years ago. And we stopped and we talked, and I was like, I'm never watching that damn movie. You guys cut me. He was like, I know, people get cut.
I wonder if you could get that scene. There's got to be a way to get it. It's somewhere.
I don't know. I think I play a cop that pulls them over or something. The Stuck on You guys. They're attached to Kinnear and
Matt Damon. Yeah.
Well, I'm somewhere in there, but
a movie that you're definitely in for sure. 2005, Waiting with Ryan Reynolds.
That's right.
That was kind of one of the first bigger comedies that you got to be part of with Anna Faris and Justin Long and Emmanuel Shrieky. What was that like to be with a bunch of comedians, you know, comedy actors?
Yeah, I just remember that one kind of came to me last minute, and I was just on a plane. Like, I don't know if I even had read the script, but somebody had mentioned that it was going to be like Office Space.
Okay.
In a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I'd worked in so many restaurants, and I understood how funny the behind the scenes were working at these places.
Yeah.
That just the idea. And Rob McKittrick was the director, writer, and I was like, okay, you know, this guy had a good reputation, and the cast was stellar. And what was funny is the Ryan Reynolds of it all was there was a TV show many years ago that I was offered that I turned down called Two Guys, a Girl, in a Pizza Place.
I remember, yep.
That he ended up getting the role on.
Wow. And
it was funny because I remember like the people at Disney were upset that I didn't do that show at the time. And the rumor was they were auditioning people using my tape of my stand-up.
Wow.
Like, we want this kind of vibe.
We want a Dane Cook.
Now I'm working with Ryan, like, how much of my persona did you know?
That's so funny.
Yeah, so I never got a straight answer on that either. But but it was still a great experience because we improvised a lot. You know, it was a great kind of framework of a script, and it's just a lot of fun with funny people.
Yeah, I feel like Waiting kind of was like a cult hit. Like people like that movie, kind of like Office Space, similar. Like Office Space was a cult hit after the fact.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. So there's like big bonanza box office, and
yeah,
then and if you're not going to be in one of those, you want to be in a movie that anytime people see it on their shelf or on their queue, they go like, "Oh, we got to watch this again." And
exactly.
that's kind of one of those movies. It'll always be. There's always a funny scene in there for somebody.
Yeah, the true. And also 2005, the movie London, written and directed by a friend of mine, Hunter Richards. That was with Chris Evans, who's another Boston guy, who's a mutual
Yep.
friend of ours. Jessica Biel played London, Jason Statham, Joy Bryant, Isla Fisher. Uh, that whole movie takes place in one night at a party, not a comedy. You know, you're a
Right.
comedy guy, but that was kind of like an edgy,
Yeah.
dramatic movie.
Right.
What do
But
you
I
remember
was
from
brought
it?
in to like improvise a scene that it was kind of like comedic.
Yeah,
It brought a little humor to this kind of darker tone, and so that was another situation where they let me kind of come in and just riff.
yeah,
Most movies at that time, Mystery Men came along, and
yes.
Kink Usher directed that, and I just riffed that whole scene. Came in and just like went off on created this part. So this was one of those things where it's like you read the material and you go, all right, how can I do something that's still a character and unique, but is a tool for this director to go like, hey, if we need to have a little bit of humor in this film, this is where we're going to get it from.
Yeah, they brought you in as the comic relief.
That's right. And that movie also had like one of the sexiest sex scenes, I think, in any movie ever with Chris and Jessica. I remember watching that movie being like, I don't even know if I should be watching this scene. This almost feels like a little bit too real.
Yeah, well, they were dating in real life. Yeah,
Well, they were dating, but so it's like, obviously they had that chemistry, but I do remember watching being like, damn, this scene is fucking heavy.
yeah, that's
This is
right.
but that again, it was fun to be able to, here it is again, stand-up comedy leading me to all these avenues to where I wanted to be participatory at that time in many different ways, shapes, and forms, like the Steve Martins, like the Eddie Murphys,
Right.
you know, being able to
Yeah,
play
that's
in
awesome.
different sandboxes, but also really already early learning to say no and trying to create the opportunity to where, how can I do this career, not get pigeonholed to where I can do a drama or I can do a psychological thriller or I could do something that's different, so I don't have to like feel like I'm a one-trick pony of just this kind of stand-up.
Right.
Because we all know it's going to change. Stand-up's going to change. There's always going to be moments where it's like, that's not in vogue. Well, maybe you can do this because you can also do drama or a play or a. So it was nice to be able to. I was building a nice little body of work there.
Totally. Yeah, and you were still doing stand up. You did in 2005. You went on tour. It was called Tourgasm, which is a funny
Right.
name still.
Yep.
And you guys were filming the behind the scenes of the tour. Were you just filming it for yourselves? And then it was kind of like, let's do something with this footage, and you sold it to HBO as a show.
Oh, well, the footage was just going to be like webisodes
Yeah.
that I cut together at home to put on my, DaneCook.com. And it was
Yeah.
like, I had all this footage. We had way too much footage. We'd filmed everything for that month. And so I think my editor was like, you have like 410 hours of footage. Like we filmed everything. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be in the edit bay for a long time.
Yeah.
And at the time, HBO was wanting me to do what would be Vicious Circle. And so we were already working up to Vicious Circle. And yet I was known, but I was still so underground I was like becoming more mainstream, but still like kind of in this alt type world as
Right.
well. And so Chris Albrecht, who was the head of HBO at the time, was like, why don't we take all that footage that you did of your Tourgasm tour, whatever the hell it is, and use it as a way to like have people get to know you before the special. So that was his brilliance to be able to step in and say, can we take that material and cut it together to make episodes? And we did. It wasn't meant to be episodes, and that wasn't always easy to cut storyline because there really wasn't.
Yeah.
We were just living our life, and we just wanted it to be funny and goofy.
It's like a docu series, I guess you would call it now.
I guess it is now, but like whatever it was, it was like a found footage movie.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It was like a Blair Witch stand-up comedy tour.
That's a good way to put it.
But it worked out. It was enough in there to show, I guess, kind of like inner workings of like somebody on the rise, this affable side of me, like, and it helped because it really did show people a different person as to who they finally saw when I took the stage. So long story short, it was a great idea for Chris Albrecht to put that on, and then it built our numbers up. So when that Vicious Circle special aired, you got to remember, before Dane Cook on HBO, I hate third person. I'm only referring that, it sounds weird, but like before Dane Cook special on HBO, it was years of Carlin and Chris Rock.
Yeah.
Robin Williams. Rarely ever did you see somebody that wasn't like monstrous in stand-up. So to some people, me there was almost like, who? Right? So I needed to be able to, when that special finally came out and I knew it was going to be epic, I knew that the size and the scope, and with the director that I had, I knew that it was going to deliver, but I still think there was a lot of people that, like, the jury wasn't completely out on me yet. And this really built the audience up so that we had nice numbers when it finally debuted.
Yeah, well, that led into your next comedy album, Retaliation, which was the highest charting comedy album in 28 years, went platinum. So for all those people who told you no one buys comedy albums, you proved them wrong with Retaliation. That was a huge deal. How incredible was that time in your life to have the highest charting comedy album in 28 years?
It was, and it was not since Steve Martin. Steve Martin was the last guy who'd been in the top 4.
Wow.
So not only was that, I remember really, just celebrating that, talking to my mom, just that phone call when I, and just her telling me, I knew it and you knew it, we're the first 2 people who knew it. And it was just an emotional moment to be able to be on there with my mom, and wow, I'm going to have a comedy album that's charting. And she said, they'll never take that away from you, baby. They'll never take that away from you.
That's
she's
right.
She's like, and she knew the world. She knew the realities of the world. And she said, the world can be a tough place, and there's always going to be, backlash. And she said, but if you put out things that are healing, like comedy, and you do good things and give back to your community, like the Fast Times, she's like, they can never take that away from you. When you heal, when you help people. And she said, and this is one of those moments, they'll never take this away from you. And I was so proud to share that with her. And then the first phone call I got in my hotel, I was in Vegas at the doing the Vegas Comedy Festival. And Lorne Michaels called me and said, you're hosting SNL. We'd like you to host.
And that's an obvious, I like that he just tells you you're hosting. He doesn't ask.
Yeah, I was standing, and then I just fell all the way flat to the floor. It was on my ass in my hotel room. And I think I had shed quite a few tears.
I bet.
I was like cry laughing, which is probably led to one of my bits that I did years later about when you're crying and you're watching yourself in the mirror and you're like trying to live in a moment that is so important.
Yeah.
I was having one of those moments. I knew that it was all coming, back. All this stuff was coming around in a big way, that I was going to host SNL.
Saturday Night Live, it's probably my favorite thing since I'm like 6 years old. And to me, that's how you know you've made it. Hosting SNL means you've made it. And so you hosted for the first time December 3rd, 2005, season 31. And didn't you almost have an audition for SNL or in your early career?
I did. Yeah. When you go all the way back to 95, 96, whatever the year was, that I think it was like, it was the year that Sandler was getting ready to leave, and they were looking for somebody to kind of come in, and I played guitar and I sang, like all those things that were kind of Sandler-ish, and the energy and the youthful kind of like, my audience. But I just didn't audition. I said no day of because I did not have the confidence. I didn't have the confidence. I still had it on stage. I had the confidence on stage. They saw me on stage and they kept saying, you got to meet Lorne, and, you'd be perfect to add to the cast. And there was a lot of talk about me doing it. And day of, I just couldn't. I just wasn't ready to fight the fight of what it meant to, like, day-to-day stand up for yourself and fight for skits and fight for, like, I knew the behind the scenes was not an easy place to exist, and I knew that it would swallow me up if I didn't go in there ready to fight.
So what was it like? But what was it like to then host it? What was that experience like? Just the coolest?
It was validating my golden gut of the kid that sat on the bench outside of Rockefeller Plaza and went to a payphone and called my manager and said, "This doesn't feel right. I can't do this. I'm not going in." And people telling me, "Man, you're making a mistake. You're missing out on this opportunity." And it told me that when my gut is gold,
Mm.
don't fucking worry about it, man. Don't fucking worry about it. I don't. I don't. And from that day forward, it had been tested. Certainly, my gut stuff with my brother and all that. Like I was gonna go through another version of like life trials that were, spectacular and not in the spectacular sense.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but it told me that like my path was the right path because now I got to have my brand and my business and wake up in the morning and go, what do I want to do today?
Yeah.
Not just the person I'm working for. How do I make them look good or the show look good? And then I got to actually participate and play and do SNL a couple of times. It was great.
Yeah. And it was almost unprecedented that you were asked to host again less than a year later. You
Right.
hosted the season
Yeah.
premiere of season 32, September 2006.
Yep.
Went right back. That's amazing.
I was loving it. But I was also like starting to realize and understand also now there was a whole other side of this world that was like, wasn't as accepting of the self-made comedian having these opportunities to, I'm not Tom Hanks. I'm not one of these, mega star Julia Roberts standing in front of it. It was a unorthodox path that I had taken.
Yeah.
Yet you probably wouldn't have said that if it was 1978 when Carlin was doing it or Steve Martin. It felt like I was like trespassing on like this territory where it's like, how is this guy able to do this? But Lorne Michaels had the understanding because he came up like that, and we had a simpatico because we spoke each other's language from the first moment we met.
Right.
And he got it, and I got him. But a lot of people on the outside were starting to look and go, the optics are, wait, Carlin and Pryor and Steve Martin, fucking Dane Cook? It was like people couldn't understand that. It was like, no, but in their era, those guys were, I'm sure, Newhart and
right.
and like there was an era of guys before them going, Carlin?
Right.
Pryor? It was like, no, I'm doing it for my generation now.
Exactly.
So don't compare me. I'm not comparing. Those guys are the architects of all things comedy. Like, I'm not looking at them. I'm looking at how I'm doing it in this day and age.
Right.
So it was both the second time, especially even more exciting. And the comfortability, but also me starting to realize like, wow, I need to start pushing back a little bit more. People are starting to say that I'm not deserving of this. And like, that is just some horseshit.
Yeah. That was your moment. Exactly. And then that led into Vicious Circle, which was another tour and another album. Sold out Madison Square Garden, 2 back-to-back weekends. Those are 20,000 person shows. Like you said, you always knew you'd perform at MSG. Vicious Circle, like you mentioned, became an HBO special, September 2006. Didn't Chris Rock call you after he watched it to compliment you?
He did. And I just talked with him recently. He was nice enough to do a Hollywood Reporter did a thing last year, and I asked Chris, I was like, oh man, that moment meant so much to me that you reached out, and he did. We were talking about that, but he reached out at that time just to tell me that, he was very impressed, and that he said it reminded him of an Eddie Murphy special.
Wow.
And I said, Chris, you're one of the best to ever do this, and to hear that coming from you, I said, please let me buy you lunch when I get back to LA. Please let me just, in some way thank you for this call, because to get that from, and, to me, it's like Chris and I, came up together, but obviously Chris hit like this superstardom while I was still figuring out where I was at. And I looked at Chris, and in many ways, Chappelle, even though Dave was, kind of like, I go in the lineage, like behind Chris, I looked at these guys as like, these guys are the best to do it.
Yeah.
From my from my kind of generation coming up. And so when I could get the praise from one of those guys saying good set, I knew that I was in good company.
Yeah, and you had the HBO special. Chris was known for his HBO specials.
Yeah.
You had joined the club, and so then continuing in 2006, after supporting roles in all those other movies, you're now the lead in Employee of the Month, directed by Greg Coolidge. It was you, Jessica Simpson, Dax Shepard.
Right.
I was at that premiere. I just remember like it just looked like a fun movie to make. Did you love
Right.
making that movie? Did you have a great
Yeah.
time?
It was, and I knew when I first read it, I was like, "Oh, this is like a feel good kind of situation," and it's not something that I was looking at as I don't need to reinvent the wheel here. This was just a place where I could go, and it's like insert the comedy, but also to like insert some vulnerability and some things that like you don't need to be so big and broad. So I was like, "Oh, this is great. When the comedy needs to be big and broad, we can have it." Also, I was working with Harlan Williams and Andy Dick and Dax Shepard and people around me that I was like, oh, I get to bounce stuff off people. And Jessica Simpson came in so game and ready to play. And so it was like just being surrounded by people that wanted to win, wanted me to have a big win since it was going to be my name at the top. And I was like, oh, again, this seems like the kind of movie that I grew up watching on HBO going, I think in 20 years, this is still going to be like, there's a place for this. It's going to be funny. It's not fruitless.
People are still watching it too. I know you're always posting.
It was just on the top 10 Netflix movies for like 3 weeks.
Crazy.
And it was also not just in comedy, but in their new releases. So the fact that like when it hit Netflix, everybody was into it and writing me these nice, some people are like, I'm watching this for the first time. I'm like, oh my God.
The beauty of movies is it's always being rediscovered by new people.
Yeah.
And I remember you and Jessica hosted the Teen Choice Awards to promote it. It was like a big pop culture moment. And at the same time, you released Rough Around the Edges, which was the Live from Madison Square Garden album and DVD. So you were like firing on all cylinders.
True.
In 2007. And then,
No, I was going to say that was like when you really feel like you're at the crossroads of all things personal and professional. Like, I'm okay. We're not the welfare. We're not in the system anymore. I can take care of my family if they're healthy or if they're not. So it was just really like there was always like a theme music playing in your head at that time. Things were pretty great, man.
Yeah, and then you had this streak of movies from 2007 to 2008, all different genres. So June 2007, Mr. Brooks, which is a drama with Kevin Costner, Demi Moore, William Hurt. I'm sure that was like cool to be a part of it, especially since it was a dramatic movie and a dramatic role.
It was. Yeah, I wanted to work with Kevin Costner desperately. And so when I got the phone call that he loved my audition and then he called me and said, this is very different. Do you want to do this? I was like, 100% absolutely yes. The time I spent with him, the stories,
I'm sure,
Dances with Wolves and everything from The Untouchables up and hearing his stories and it was actually more than just, not more than, but like in tandem to what I learned just as an actor and working with him on that and the trust he gave to me and the collaboration.
Yeah.
The seeds of what I wanted to be as a director and what I am building up in the recent years of my career.
Yeah.
I gleaned a lot from those chats with him. So they will forever stay with me and you'll see it in the work that I do from here on out.
Yeah. He was one of those, actors who also directed, went on to win Oscars. He's like the benchmark for that.
Oh, he's a stud, man. Costner is like
so cool.
He's the shit.
So many movies from childhood that we watched, Bull Durham, Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams. It's like, Kevin, I go, can you just, every time you make me cry, every single time at the end of that movie.
Of course.
It was just, the guy is, before the term multi-hyphenated, blah, blah, blah was in vogue, Kevin Costner was like the first guy that you were like, can he, give him a guitar. Can he sing? Fuck, he can sing. Right. He's a musician too. It's like, the guy is just, I love him.
He can do it all, yeah. And then September 2007, Good Luck Chuck, romantic comedy, you and Jessica Alba, directed by Mark Helfrich, who I had worked on some of the movies that he edited, like 3 movies before that. Right. In that movie, you played the title role, Good Luck Chuck, and he's called that because after him, women end up with the guy they're supposed to end up with.
That's
You're like
right.
the last stop, and that's kind of become a term that people still use. Like, oh, he's a good luck Chuck.
Right,
People
right.
even say.
It was a gimmick. I
Yeah,
knew the thing that drew me to that movie was that it was a sex romp, and I thought
yeah,
that there was really room for an R-rated. I think outside, I don't even think Seth Rogen's. I don't think there was a real big R-rated comedy at that time, or if there was one. I don't know if like Wedding Crashers. Like I knew that there was a possibility to do a sex romp that could be real edgy, funny for my generation that I came up with.
yeah.
But I've never told anybody this before. I don't think I've ever spoken this out loud, but you triggered this thought when you brought it up. My whole concept for the character of Chuck, or Charlie, was I want to play this guy like the scene in National Lampoon's Vacation when Chevy Chase is in the saloon and the guy shoots the shotgun and he jumps up from behind the bar and he's like, I'm okay. I'm all right. My whole idea was to build the comedy in a bit more of a slapstick Chevy Chase National Lampoon's Vacation way, was how I came at that differently from anything else that I had done.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, you recently.
I don't know if I nailed that, but
Yeah, you did.
That was the blueprint for me of like, I want that. In fact, I put that little homage to Chevy Chase in the scene with the car with the battery, and I get shocked from the car battery.
Yeah.
She turns the car on too quick, and I remember going to Mark and saying, I need to pop up into frame. He had it shot different, and I don't tell a director how to direct, but for that one scene, I said, Mark, this is how I want to come into frame. And I wanted it to be the same framing as Chevy Chase coming from behind the bar.
I love that.
Yeah.
You posted an image from the movie the other day, and you said it was the most surreal moment. It's when you're in the ocean. You said the crew was cheering you on, saying, go hard or go home.
With the boner on the beach moment.
Yeah. How crazy was that?
My first day of filming. It was crazy. But I also knew like I'm there with aroused on this beach and going, okay, I'm definitely making a sex romp. There's no turning back now.
Yeah, exactly. And then your next movie, October 2007, was more of a dramedy, not a sex romp, called DANE in Real Life. It's one of my favorite movies of yours, directed by Peter Hedges. It stars you and Steve Carell as brothers. Also Diane Wiest, who's incredible, John Mahoney, Juliette Binoche, Alison Pill. What was it like making that movie? I love that movie.
Well, that movie is so near and dear to my heart. For so many reasons. It was the last movie my dad got to come visit me on set before he passed away. It was the movie that I did right before I filmed Rough Around the Edges at Madison Square Garden. Of course, I love Steve Carell, and I wanted to work with him so bad. But the way that movie came to me, a lot of people thought at that time, again, talking about like the way the industry kind of puts you in a box, was nobody really believed that. They thought everything was just going to be alpha and that on stage, winning thing that came with the stand-up act, which is my whatever, the way people
persona. Yeah.
And so the director, Peter Hedges, the way I got that role, because they were like, can he play the guy who doesn't get the girl and is vulnerable, and like that, will you feel for him do you care if Dane Cook, the guy we know Dane Cook, is losing the whatever these silly behind the scenes questions.
Yeah.
And so Peter Hedges came to see me at Madison Square Garden, and I was doing the Madison Square Garden Theater. This was before I played the actual big. And he said he told me, he goes, I stood in line with all your fans, and on the way in, I basically interviewed your fans and asked your fans, would you ever want to see, you guys are fans of Dane? Oh, I'm a new fan. Would you ever want to see him play a role that's a drama? And he said, your fans were so behind that. They weren't selfish in saying like, no, you should only do stuff like stand up. He said, I talked to 10 people, random people in this line. And then he finally said, do you think he could be vulnerable though? Do you think like he could lose the girl? He said, your fans got you the gig.
Wow. How
He said,
cool.
yeah, Peter had just stood in line and told me in the hotel lobby when we were sitting in the hotel lobby after the show, and he reached out and he said, shook my hand. He said, you got it. He goes, and your fans are believing. I believe you can do it, but your fans really put me over the edge. He was one of the people who wasn't sure.
That's
I
amazing.
just told him, I said, I won't let you down, man. I said, there was 2 times in my life where I've said to somebody, I'll exceed your expectations. Peter Hedges and Mel Brooks, when he offered me the role in The Producers when we did it at the Hollywood Bowl.
Right.
And Mel Brooks called me and said, can you do the German accent? Can you deliver? And I said, Mr. Brooks, Mel, I will exceed your expectations. I promise I would not say yes to this if I didn't think I could do something that would make you proud. And I told that to Peter, and I love that movie.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then September 2008, another movie I know you're proud of, My Best Friend's Girl. That's a comedy, love triangle between you, Kate Hudson, and Jason Biggs.
Yeah.
What was that like doing a rom-com with Kate Hudson? She was like the rom-com queen.
She was, and yet I also knew there was another situation where it's like, all right, this can be a little edgier. I knew that we were making something that was going to be in a lot of ways a tribute to Boston. We got to film in Boston. I got to produce my first big movie in Boston. Yeah. And I also felt like, again, I was working with all my abilities. Everything I learned from all those other films, I felt like led up to my performance in that. Yeah. I also knew that was the movie. Man, you're getting a lot of firsts from me here.
I love it.
I don't even think I touch on this in the book, but that's when I knew that I was going to walk away from doing comedies after that. Because I knew that I had done a series of different kinds of comedies that I wanted to do. And I'd also been watching certain people that I admired become kind of only able to do comedies.
Right.
And it freaked me out because I was like, man, I just know that I can entertain my audience in ways. It's my responsibility to also show that through my stand-up. I need to be able to continue to evolve at the foundation is my stand-up. But if I keep making these movies with, I think Lionsgate, I've done like 7 movies with them.
Yeah.
I said it. And so this was going to be my love letter, my final. And I also knew that was going to be probably my last big major comedy, because that was the year that the Red Sox had won the World Series for the second time. And I got to see them in about 17 games at Fenway Park because we were filming right next door. Yeah. And I knew Tom Warner and John Henry and those guys. So I'd run over and hang with them and watch games. And I kind of felt like, all right, we're going to win our second World Series. I've done a bunch of I'm going to overstay my welcome if I make too many straight, comedies like this.
Yeah.
And I got offered a couple after that. That were hard to say no to, but I did.
Wow.
But that was like the one that I really felt like was going to be my swan song to that era of I grew up as this guy, but now I'm ready to grow and evolve into a man in different things that I want in my life and in my professional life.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But you'll go back to comedy films.
Oh man, I love comedy.
Yeah.
I would still love to whether it's at the helm or as part of an ensemble in a comedy. I know what I can bring to it.
Yeah.
I know with the right director and the right person who wants to put me in that position. I know how I come to work, and if somebody wants to explore that, hell yeah, I would love to do a comedy. I just knew at that time I didn't want to continue to. I was getting movies sent to me like, okay, in this one, you're the likable asshole that does A, B, and C. I'm like,
yeah, interesting.
I don't want to just cash a check. My fans would go, this is starting to feel like, you're just kind of using us to, I was like, nah, I could always do stand-up. I could always do stand-up and make money and whatever. Wow. I want to be more selective in my life and choices. And Juliette Binoche was the one who actually was such a big factor in that, because when we were making Dan in Real Life, she was so wonderful to me and said, you should be more patient and you should start waiting for things. And it might take longer. And there might be some years where you're not like the cool new guy anymore. She's like, who cares? Wait for the more interesting stuff. And so I started to do that after, and I was so gratified when I would get a call from a Brian Fuller or somebody, a Michael Green, and say, "You want to do something really different?" It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
I do.
Well, also, you mentioned this earlier. Something crazy happened to you in 2008, where you mentioned your brother. You ended up, all your money was stolen that you had earned for all of these years, building yourself up, making this hard-earned money,
Right.
doing all these movies, successful tours, and one day you found out your money was gone because your brother was also your business manager at the
That's
time.
right.
And I bring it up because it's actually turned into an inspirational story because you built yourself back up in a way that when you told me the story, I found it fascinating. Uh, Explain kind of the quick version of how
Yeah.
such a
It's
horrible thing happens, but you build yourself back up.
unfortunately there is no quick version.
Okay.
So the great news is, early plug is, the book is going to cover this in such an amazing way,
Okay.
and probably in a very insightful way, to
Yeah.
where if you're sitting here listening going, I don't know what happened, um, the Cliff Notes version is,
Yeah.
yes, my brother was overseeing my finances, and I did not know that my brother was not a good guy. I grew up with a guy that I thought was one thing, and unfortunately, um, you know, he was basically a sociopath.
Right.
Somebody who just did not have my best interest at heart, had his own best interest at heart.
Right.
So I went through this unbelievable capsizing moment where not only had my parents both succumbed to cancer about 2 years prior in the
Ooh.
same year, but now I'm just starting to kind of get healthy, and I have to put my brother in jail because my life savings isn't my life savings anymore.
Yeah.
And again, where the book will go is one way, but what I can tell you was, I came out of that era realizing that I wasn't in any way, shape, or form identifiable inside myself as anything to do with money or wealth or welfare.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't either of those things. I wasn't a welfare kid, and I wasn't a wealthy person.
Right.
I was a person who just loved to create. And whether I had nothing or everything, I didn't see it. See, I didn't see it when we were welfare kids.
Yeah.
I didn't see it when I was the richest person in stand-up comedy,
Yeah.
because I didn't look. Because I didn't look. I contribute, and then I keep moving.
Yeah.
I work. And so it really was this, not to boil it down to too much simplicity, but this aha moment where I realized all I need is what's in my mind and passion. All I need is a
Amazing.
great idea and passion. And whether the industry moves on, or my brother moves on, or whoever, that's the seasons of life. And you don't hold on to anything. And you don't really, you can hope for things, but don't hope for things when you already have something inside of you that is ready to be embraced. Don't
Right.
hope for anything. Hold on to what you have. It's already there. Hope is almost like an additional beautiful room on a house that you already live in, and you're
Mm.
hoping for that addition when it's like, look at what's around you.
Right.
So for me, it taught me, oh shit, I have all this stuff that nobody can take or steal or anything. I just have to access it through love, self-love.
Right. And I
And
think,
so,
yeah.
yeah, so that was the beginning of, it was almost like the final, it was like the middle of The Empire Strikes Back. I
Yeah.
had A New Hope. My first years were Star Wars: A New Hope.
Yeah.
This is when I got my hand cut off in Empire, and I knew I was heading towards my Return of the Jedi moment.
Yeah. I think most people wouldn't know how to come back from that. I mean, millions and millions of dollars stolen that you've been
Right?
saving just vanished. It literally gone.
Yeah.
And um, you explained to me, which I found fascinating, that you continued to go on tour, but this time you would rent out the arena on nights that they didn't have something going on, and then you would keep the door, keep whatever was made. And so
Yeah.
you were kind of reinvesting in yourself and then making it back tenfold, like kind of
Yeah. I was
how that
talking to my management team and saying, like, I want to reinvent the way touring is done. and I want to do something in the holy shit business. And what would that be is I want to create a touring industry the way somebody who might be like a strong, feature comic from a couple of TV appearances might like rent a hall and like sell it out for 300 or 400 people. I want to rent an arena and sell it out for 15 to 25,000 people.
Right.
And so I would, night after night, I took what little I retained from the theft, and I just started leasing arenas, which I learned very quickly. Oh, you can lease an arena, like you can lease the fucking like a ballroom at a hotel for a wedding. You can like go, oh, there's no basketball or hockey game here on Tuesday. Can I use this? And they go, yeah, give us 70 grand. And you go, oh, okay. Or if it's a B or C list arena and there's more of those than some of the beautiful A houses are like, okay, you can put like $35,000 and rent a place on a Thursday night, and you're charging the ticket price, you're selling the merch. Sometimes they would let me do a deal if they could say, hey, can we open the concessions? And, yeah, people want beers. People would love a beer at a comedy show. Can we do that? And take a cut of that. And as the year went on, my goal was by the time I reached the courtroom to see my brother for the trial, I want to have everything he stole and then some.
Amazing.
And I did. I had a brand new Dolce & Gabbana suit on when I walked in that door basically, can I tell you, the day of the court case was just a waste of my time. I was so busy and happy and entrepreneurial and finding that success again that was just needed to be tapped in, that it was almost like, man, wow, all you did was just waste my day. This was, what a waste. You blew your whole life. You were on a great ride.
Right.
You fucked up. And that's all you've done with me. It's like, you've just taken time out of my life that I could have been doing something spirited. It was amazing to get there 1 year later. Now, I still had a lot of work to do in terms of like really what that did to my mental health and betrayal, love. I loved my brother. I loved him.
Yeah.
I loved that I had a brother. I didn't have a brother before him, and I didn't after. For a little while in my life, I had a brother. I had somebody but then I realized I did have a brother. My friend Richard, who was actually here while we were talking, he comes in, and because the local pool is closed, I let him swim here because of the COVID. And he is my brother, and I've known him 25 years, and I tell him from time to time, you're my brother. You're the brother that you're more a brother to me than a flesh and blood brother. So there are people out there that want to be in your family and our family. And I just had to take a longer road to be able to understand that. And it only made my life more enriched. The theft made my life more enriched.
Incredible. So you wouldn't go back and change it if you could?
Oh God, no, no way. Everything happened exactly, even things that I look back and, public humiliation from the story hitting. Also, backlash. I was also going through like stuff in the comedy community that was like, people were looking for me to have kind of it's that American way. We do love, we like when the long distance runner falls and twists the ankle and then they're down and then they're crying and then we love that. We love to see the person who had everything going for them, like lose it and the fucking, your sneaker falls off, God, but then you put your shoe on and then you're limping and then you're full strength. We love that. I love it. We love that. And I knew that I knew that was, even though it hurt to be in the middle of that, I was like, okay, I'm having that moment that you have in a career where people have to start, I belong to everybody now. I don't just belong to my fans. And that means that everybody gets to have a say in that great old American freedom of speech where people get to very loudly go, you suck. I don't like your face. I don't want to see you anymore. And you get to live through that.
Crazy.
And the fact that was all happening in a spin cycle of like, grieving my parents, grieving the loss of my brother, which essentially was a death as well. Not grieving, but like, being spanked by the industry and like in this moment with other comics and having to kind of come through like this, just kind of, I don't know what you would even call that, just like a hazing.
Yeah. Well, you were like falsely accused of stealing jokes, which you never did.
That's right.
And it came out that you never did it, but it was kind of this.
That's right. But at that moment, it was coming from somebody who, just had a lot of his own
issues.
Was having his own moment,
Yeah.
when somebody who's having a brilliant, bright moment says, I don't like that thing or that person. Well, then everybody kind of wants to be with that person and go, we agree. We also, and I was due for it, and I kind of knew it. I knew enough about history that anybody who came up was going to, every single person I admired had moments that I read in their memoirs, or when I'd hear stories or read a Rolling Stone interview, it's like, oh, fuck, that person went through drug abuse. That person went through, their wife, committed suicide. I understood that I wasn't in any way any different. I'm not bulletproof and I'm not special.
Right.
I'm only able to have these glorious kind of beacon moments if I do the work to earn it.
Right.
Right. And so now this was one of those few moments where I was like, I'm capsized. I'm going to have to learn what it is to come back from this. But I'm more enriched because of all of those things. Empathy, understanding, being the old bull mentor to young artists, to be able to try to help them with the perils.
Yeah.
To be able to say to somebody, I have nothing to gain or lose from helping you. I don't want to do anything but help you to not be hurt more. So learn from here's some of my failures. That's good data for you to hopefully find more successes. And somebody actually said to me, oh, but aren't you then preventing them from having them? No, it's coming.
Yeah.
Reckoning is coming. All you're trying to do as a good mentor is help people to go, here's the tools, not to avoid, but when you have your moment, you're going to be fine because somebody like me encountered this.
Right.
And forged on. And so that's the role of the old bull on the hill, And so no, the very long answer to your question is absolutely nothing changes. No Marty McFly moment would I go back and want to adjust in any way, shape, or form.
It's incredible. Yeah. And you pulled yourself out of that experience by doing that with the arenas. I remember you said you did it at like 100 arenas that you rented out and then kept the money. You were at least 100. And you were able to build back the money that was gone. And your fans too, in a way, pulled you back as they were coming out and buying the tickets to those shows.
That's right.
So it was like
in the worst economy of our history, well, arguably now,
right.
until this year, you remember that whole era, 08, 9, 10, like the house flippings it was bad. It was really bad. And so every night that I put my hand on my heart and I said, thank you all for coming to my show, it was like,
you meant it.
No truer words ever spoken. I guess the point of what I'm trying to make is when you come and see my show, you don't see anything less than me giving 100%. There is no secondary version of the show where it's like, oh, this is a laid back region I'm in, or no. Every single night, every single show, I give my heart and soul to that audience because they were able to keep me in business during a time when I thought I was shuttering the doors.
Right. Absolutely. And so 2010, you mentioned you went into court that day. Your brother was sentenced to 6 years in prison.
Yep.
That was kind of the end of that chapter. And then, but your career was still going strong. You kind of took everything that had happened to you, the loss of your parents, the experience with your brother, and you put it into your next tour, which was Isolated Incident, which also spawned an album and a DVD. So explain why Isolated Incident was called Isolated Incident.
I felt like that pivotal moment in my life there will never be any strife meeting new fame meeting, personal collapse meeting, professional, royalty that I'd earned, all these things converging. I knew that the Isolated Incident was referring to that, that platform in my life. And so I wanted the performance to speak to that, which there's some nice little things in there to my mom and to haters and backlash. But also it was like the way I stripped the show down from, Marty Kullner, who directed me in Vicious Circle, I went back to Marty and I said, and by the way, he had directed Carlin in his first In the Round show in 1978.
Right.
And Marty is one of my dear friends and family. But I said, Marty, for the next special, I want to do this. Chopper. I gave him a treat by mistake. And this is...
That's okay.
When I'm talking, he wants to talk.
That's okay.
So, so the idea, the goal was like, okay, with Isolated Incident, I want to like pare it all the way down to something that was reflecting me, which is it's not always 20,000 people or whatever that was in that era. Sometimes it's just a personal stakes, something
Right.
that's a lot more encapsulated. So 300 people to Laugh Factory, one shot. I think I was the first person to do a one take special. I know other people have done versions of that, which I think is, sometimes they're even, I love when I see something I've done and then somebody does it in a way that's like, oh wow, I wish I thought of that. That's even better.
Yeah.
So Isolated Incident was, my love letter, my goodbye to everything prior that had brought me to that moment.
Wow. And you've said that your parents got to see your career where you were all of a sudden performing in front of thousands of people, even though you started out as this insecure kid. So they got to see that arc,
I think if nothing else, they would say to me, regardless of whatever else that I did in my career, they could always say, yeah, but we saw you do the one thing that we knew was your ticket.
Mm-hmm.
You dance with who you brung. And they saw me do that in a way that was global, and that was me saying, hey, I want to entertain the world at 15, saying I want to entertain the whole world. And
you did it.
I did it. And they got to see it, and they got to be there. My dad got to be at SNL. I remember hearing my dad in the crowd laughing.
Amazing.
I could hear his laugh. Just those are the little moments. People always go, the big moments, you must remember that. Nah, you remember your dad laughing in the audience while he was watching his son do something that, set him apart from everybody else. I didn't feel like I was really anybody, and now suddenly I'm doing things that are setting me apart from everybody.
So cool. So nice, too. And after Isolated Incident, the combined sales of your comedy albums went over 5.5 million copies, which starting out, they told you people didn't buy comedy albums. You proved everybody wrong. And then in 2010, you released another album called I Did My Best, which was your greatest hits, which is like such like a rock star thing to do, release your greatest hits. But how cool was that to release a greatest hits album, and how did you decide what to include on it?
That was hard. That was one of the harder things that I had to approach.
Yeah.
But I really just asked my fans. I went online and I said, what do you think? What are the what are the highlight moments that, you want me to celebrate with this one release?
Yeah.
And I guess it was also that thing of like, I'd always thought that a greatest hits was, again, allowing an artist to say, this definitively is what I know I've done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to acknowledge it so I can move on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not to say that people listen, people always want to hear the hits. Even in stand-up, people would love for you to repeat and do some stuff over again. That's not the way I write or I perform. I always want something brand new every time you come to see me.
Yeah.
But to be able to celebrate everything that got me to that point was, man, it's so funny because I'll show you something I brought out of storage.
Okay. Let's see it.
Be a terrible shot. I was moving some stuff around and didn't even realize that I had this.
Oh, wow. So cool. All the albums.
Yeah, they had made this for me. This is one of the things that didn't end up on the wall.
Yet. It should go on the wall. But yeah, there's that Armful of Swallowed logo that was on the Laugh Factory.
Maybe I should make this into a necklace. I wonder if I could put a chain on this and just fucking wear it.
That would be understated. That would be nice.
But as a kid who, grew up, sorry, I'll sit in the.
No, I like that.
As a kid who grew up, holding albums, right? Sitting there just staring at them in the picture and the track listing or maybe a photo, and to be able to have those, and the love and the care, not just that I put into it, but that the countless numbers of people that, you don't get there on your own as much as people go, you're a self-made guy. You're like, Yeah, but you still have to have droves of people beyond fans that are helping you to get the work done to
Right.
help you to, so it's those things are celebrations of all the people that have come in and out of my life or are still in my life or sadly have passed to say like, look at all the stuff that we put up there together and still kicking. It's great.
Yeah, and you designed all those covers, right? Weren't you a
That
graphic
is true.
designer? That's so
Yeah, that was the first thing. I went to Minuteman Vocational Tech for my freshman and part of my sophomore year before I switched to Arlington High School to pursue drama and then meet my mentor.
yeah.
Um, and while I was there, that's what I studied. I
Well,
wanted to understand how to design posters, flyers, because I knew I wanted to make flyers for my comedy
oh
show.
yeah, right, of course.
And I ended up learning basically a new program called like Adobe Photoshop One.
Wow. One.
um, and from that, I, I, I think if I had been fired from the entertainment industry early, if they immediately revoked my entertainment license and backstage pass,
Yeah.
I probably would have had a career in
Graphic
that the
design.
graphic design. I love it. I really to this moment like everything in my office is like a design of something I want to do coming up.
Yeah, you had your own logo, the super finger, Sufi.
I did. I
Yeah.
did. I did. I thought that would go the distance. I really thought at the time, I was like, this is going to be one of those things that's going to be my logo for life. I grew up, I loved Rolling Stones. They had the lips and the famous lips and the tongue, or,
Yeah.
it seemed like all the bands that I loved had something that was kind of like their look. Even like Prince had a symbol at one point.
Yeah, he changed his
I,
name.
yeah. And I think I was looking for any ways that I could make stand up so unique to what I had seen it be before.
Right.
And for a number of years, that was my thing. The Sufi was my rock and roll symbol,
Yeah, can you show
my
it for people who
reverse
don't know?
rock and roll
Yeah.
symbol. This was the rock and roll symbol,
Yeah,
and I turned that into reverse it, and that's this.
exactly.
And it was great. It was great for a lot of years, and then I think I just finally realized one day, wow, I think this is almost counterproductive to what I'm always talking about of evolution and growing up and allowing yourself to be something different within your artistry. And I almost feel like that was pulling me into like people still thought it was the shocker or thought it was lewd.
Right.
Uh, and I didn't like that. And I love that I got tattoo pictures of it. People tattooed it, people around the world, military members, everybody was sending me pictures for years and years. And I feel like that was our thing
Yeah,
then.
right.
But once I finally let it go, it was one of the harder things because I kind of thought, I thought I'd have this forever. But can't hold on to everything forever.
Yeah,
Not all.
exactly. Well, after your greatest hits album, you took some time off, some well-deserved time off.
Oh yeah,
Your next tour wasn't until 2013, the Under Oath tour, and
right.
that led into 2014, your Showtime comedy special, Troublemaker, which you
Yeah,
wrote and produced because you wanted a hand in all of it,
yeah.
right? So
I did.
explain,
In my first one, I directed too.
right? So explain Troublemaker, that project. Yeah.
Troublemaker is, I believe, my best work up to that point. It was like I finally had all the magic spells remembered. I didn't just have a few things that I knew how to do, like in Vicious or in Rough Around the Edges.
Yeah.
I think Isolated taught me a lot about stillness and the power of, just having the performance be in the eyes, much like I learned from the dramatic performances or Dan in Real Life or Mr. Brooks.
Exactly.
Everything I'd learned, Johnny Carson once said about stand up, he said, you'll use everything you've learned in a moment where you suddenly need it. You'll
Huh.
be up against something, there'll be an improvisational moment, and in that mathematical nanosecond, everything you've learned will be available to you.
Wow.
But those can only be the things that you've experienced. I felt like Troublemaker was pain, love, passion, striving, strife, uh, having done the work on myself to own faults and mistakes and the parts of myself I didn't want to accept or acknowledge or forgive, and yet also being able to share, here's what I know I'm great at and what I love and want you to see me excel in. Boom. All that was meeting at this show. the thing that almost derailed it was I had 2 nights to film it at the Venetian in Vegas. Up until the moment I filmed it, not enough people had told me that you should never film a special in Vegas. And I think I just thought, oh, it's going to be bombastic and Vegas energy. What I forgot is Vegas is so unpredictable, especially crowd-wise, that when you have cameras in the room, it's not always like another crowd in New York that's like, oh, we've been through this. We get it. We know when to chill. Friday night, I came into the show, and it's awful. It is terrible. It's I get up on stage, and within a few minutes, the sound is bad. I'm getting feedback. The whole first 2 rows aren't even in. I didn't have my warm-up act didn't like pause and wait for, like, they didn't tell us the warm-up act, like there's no people in the front, so people were still coming in. Friday, I'm filming my first night of 2. I'm paying for this. I went out of pocket for the whole thing myself. Wow. Because I wanted to do something that I did everything, created everything top to bottom. Right. And out of pocket, own, operate, like, not where like, oh, I'm going to deal with somebody and it's perpetuity for 10 years and then I resort back to me, and I just wanted purely to own a full piece of my work from beginning, middle, and end. Yeah. So Friday night is fucking wretched. I come off stage and nobody even wants to look at me because they know it and I know it. This is a bad show. In fact, it affected my performance in a way that about midway through the show, because I started to realize that it wasn't usable and that my demeanor and everything was so thrown off that I ended up doing the show like I would do any show, but I wasn't doing it like, say, for television. So it wasn't like my professionalism wasn't there, but I wasn't the extra gloss that you need when you're editing a show together. Yeah, it's casual. Yes, definitely casual, but like, it's like I'm still on the bike, but the kickstand's down. Right. Okay. Yeah. So I come off stage and I brought my crew together and nobody knew what to say. And I said, listen, tomorrow night is going to be great. We learned a lot. We'll fix it. Tomorrow night's going to be awesome. Mm-hmm. And I went back and got ready for Saturday night show. And I remember thinking to myself, if this night is like Friday night, I'm going to have the most expensive home video of a comedy show that nobody's ever going to want to see ever. Right. Saturday night was like what you call like the lightning in a bottle night. I went on stage. It was just like right out of the gate. It was just everything I wanted it to be. And I remember I brought it to my editor, Matt Somerville. And I said to Matt, just basically like, it's Saturday night. We'll just trim Saturday night, get Saturday night ready. He's like, okay. And then he called me. He's like, hey, you want to come over and watch Friday night? I said, no. Never. No way. And he goes, I think you should watch it. And I was like, what? Why? And he goes, I watched it. And he's like, well, first of all, he goes, you went after like 3 people in the crowd because they fucked with you. And I said, oh, I know. That's because the crowd was still moving around or somebody was like yelling over a bit and it threw me off the tempo. And he goes, I don't know, man. He goes, remember on Retaliation when the guy heckled you and you said to the guy in the audience, great, now you've made it uncomfortable in here. It's like daddy just hit mommy at the dinner table and we're still trying to eat together. Right. He goes, remember that moment? And I go, of course. He goes, and you kept it on the album. And I was like, well, I did. I go, it's maybe one of the funniest retorts to a heckler because it released all the crowd was scared after that. Like, DANE mad? And it made everybody, he goes, it's kind of like that. And I said, I know, but what about the rest of the routine? He goes, you just got to watch it. Anyway, we queue it up and we watch Friday. And the thing that was really kind of like a wow, I never realized that, and I learned so much from was by letting go of that little sheen, the gloss that you normally put on the show and not pushing so hard. It gave all the setups to my material like a really interesting, cool. I had just had a different disposition. My whole disposition leading. So what we started to do is we started cutting Friday night setups and using Saturday nights. Oh, wow. You'll never see it. You so Troublemaker. Oh, dude, it's crazy. It's a combination like of one hair out of place once in a while that you go like, oh, your hair looks. you'll never know. But Troublemaker is like setups from Friday night and punches from Saturday.
That's really cool.
And
Wow.
it really changed my stand-up approach, because since then, that's really my style. I'm looser in my setups, and I'm fiendishly laser specific when I know I got you hooked. But I don't try to hook you at the beginning anymore. I just let you hang with me.
That's cool.
I just pal around with you a little bit, and then I hook at the third act of what would be the story of whatever that piece of routine is.
Wow.
And I learned that from the worst mistake of a bad show Friday night, and then luckily my editor saying, I think that there's a way to create something that's really unique. What was really good about that in the edit was the blueprint to that special was, I pitched my team and said, I want this to look like Pryor live at Sunset Strip. I said, in the way that I want it to be a little messy, a little bootlegged. I want it to look like somebody snuck cameras into the audience. So I want shots through people. I don't mind if you get bumped. I told my camera guy, if you get bumped, you get bumped. Keep filming, it's okay. And so if you watch that special, there is like some unorthodox movement. And it was really, because everything that I do has to have like that loving homage to something that I loved growing up.
Yeah. So I need to rewatch that now, knowing it's those 2 nights.
Yeah. All the
Blended
heckle
together.
moments are Friday. Anything where I'm like, a guy laughs and I'm like, and then I fuck with that guy and we go back and forth.
That's
It's
right.
like, that's all Friday. And then any bits that you see that really start to ramp up at the end, it's like the beginning of that routine was the ease of Friday night, in my mind, letting go, being like, no pressure. I've got a whole nother night to do this. And that's, really what informed the whole show.
That's so cool. And it ended up on Showtime. And then
That's right.
And then you took a break from touring after that, but around that same time you were doing voiceover work. That's when you were Dusty Cropper in Planes
Yeah.
in 2013, and
Yeah.
in the sequel Planes, Fire and Rescue in 2014. That's major to be an animated voice in a Disney Pixar movie.
Oh, man.
Was that another childhood dream come true?
Yeah, and especially working with John Lasseter, who
Right.
had approached me to take over the role of Dusty. They had another actor in there. Actually, they had already been working with an actor for some months, and
Okay.
I met Lasseter at an evening at the Hollywood Bowl. They were doing an evening of Pixar music with the LA Philharmonic,
Yeah.
and I got to talk with Lasseter after, and he's like listening to me talk, and finally he's like, I'm going to call you in a few months. There's something going on, and I'm like, okay. And sure enough, 3 months later, he calls me. He's like, we got to let go of the guy that is voicing Dusty.
Wow.
Just isn't what we wanted initially. And I was like, okay. And he's like, is there any way you could come over, and you're basically going to have to ADR half the movie's animation, which is so unique. I was like, how do you do that? It's already, he said, you're going to have to give it your attitude with the animation that's already there. I was like, damn, that's a challenge. And I love a fucking challenge.
Right.
So I go over there and I'm with like the original engineers, Doc, and all the fucking old school Disney guys I got to work with.
Yeah.
And they put it up on a big screen in Studio 5 and set the whole thing up. So I was actually watching it on a movie theater screen.
Oh, wow.
With the mic, and it was amazing for the first one. So we did that, and it was fun to hear the original work and go, okay, I know what this guy was going for, and then my take.
Make it yours, yeah.
And then once we got to Fire and Rescue, which I adore, I love that. I'll show my kids that movie someday. I can't wait. So, and so I got to finally do that, and then that was from the ground up. I got to work with him right from the early sketches and early scripts.
So could you improvise on the second one?
I got to improvise more, because then they could come in after and play around and figure out how to make that look the way I was behaving it. But another moment where it's like I would talk in my therapy after I was entrenched in some great therapy for years, and one day I said to my therapist, I always told my mom when I was a kid I want to entertain the world, and then he said, do you think that might have been a lot of pressure as a kid to to feel like you have to show your mom that you're making it, not if you're just entertaining Boston or the United States, but the world? And I remember for a little while I go, yeah, maybe I guess I'm setting my sight's a little too high. And then I hooked up, with these guys, and I'm doing Dusty, and next thing you know, I'm in this global thing, and I'm go back to my therapist, and I'm like, I can't stop entertaining the world. It's
Exactly.
I said even my character is in the around the globe fucking race.
Right.
My character is racing. I said, I think I'm meant to continue to, when I have my moments, when I'm when people do seek me out and they want, great work from somebody who can do what I do, I'm doing it to deliver at the highest capacity, and I don't think I know anything less.
Right. Can you turn on Dusty Crop Hopper at any time?
Well, really, the voice more than anything was me kind of settling into the fantastical side of my voice. That side that's always inside, that knows that things are possible.
Right.
Can't give up on it. And to me, that's always a voice that sounds like it wants to go, but feels so stuck in a moment right here, but knows that they could get right. So that's kind of the register. Hey, that any second now I'm about to make myself go, and so that's kind of where the boyishness cool. And yet still having that determination. I think they wanted a voice that was living in hopeful, imaginative, but had determination. And John heard that in my voice that day, thankfully.
That's cool. I think my nephew will appreciate that you just did the voice.
And I'll call every once in a while. I'll get somebody. I think Jim Jeffries once, his son was a big fan, and on his birthday I called and just left a Dusty Crop Hopper message. Keep soaring to the skies.
Yeah, that'll follow you forever, for sure. That's like the Robin Williams Aladdin moment,
Oh man, just to be in the, one night it was me, Jeff Garlin, and Tim Allen just hanging at the Laugh Factory upstairs, and I think I looked at those guys and I said, "Look at us all Disney voices here sitting in a circle." It was so fucking, man. It's just like
Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, Buzz, and Garlin is. Man, that guy's unbelievable. I love that guy.
Me too. He's in two of my favorite shows ever, Curb Your Enthusiasm and Goldbergs.
Oh
He's in both.
So good.
Yep. Yeah. And so you also do voices for Robot Chicken. I know you've done that. So you've gotten
I did an episode of that.
Yeah.
I've had my little dalliances in voiceover. If I thought there was one area of my life or career where I'm still sometimes like, I feel like I'm underutilized, there is I do so many different kinds of voices, but I don't get a lot of opportunity to do animation. And I wish I could, or I would like to, because I really feel like making pictures come to life only using, the sound of your voice is such a craft. And I like that challenge.
Yeah. And that's something you can do forever.
In that, right?
Yeah, you can do it in your pajamas. Yeah. In 2017, you went back to TV for a show unlike anything you'd done before, very different than the sitcom world you started in. American Gods on Starz with Ian McShane and Pablo Schreiber, Crispin Glover, who's George McFly from Back to the Future. Well, that was a departure. What drew you to that?
Brian Fuller.
Yeah.
Love that guy. I mean, talk about like when you put your list of like who are the few people that I want to work with, and Michael Green. I mean, Michael Green, Logan. I forget it. Like I could sit and talk about Michael Green, but it's like these guys. They're the when Julia Binoche said you need to be excruciatingly patient and wait to work with people that are of a caliber that you see yourself or want to be participatory with. And so when Brian called me and he said, I got this role and the casting person thought that you might be good for it, but I wanted to talk to you personally because, whatever his reservations were. And I just told him, I said, listen, I know what you need. You need this guy to be a, misogynistic, cheating husband. I said, but I think I can bring you a version of this that, dare I say, would make him somewhat, I don't want to say just likable, but somebody that you found yourself oddly kind of rooting for of certain vulnerability. Yeah. I said that it might make the scene a little bit more complex, because then you're just not rooting for the lead girl's character and me to, fail. You're kind of like conflicted. I said, I'd like to bring a little bit of conflicted. And just based on the phone call, Brian was like, man, it sounds like you have a great beat on it. Will you come up and do it? So the cool thing was I got to be a part of the first season of American Gods, which is still awesome and still going strong. Ricky Whittle and all those guys, just amazing cast. Even after Brian Fuller and Michael Green departed. But what I learned much later was they were going to bring me back, that there was a whole other storyline that Michael Green shared with me. I can't go into all the ins and outs out of respect for Michael, but he did tell me, he's like, oh man, he told me the whole thing. He's like, this is what we were going to do. And I was like, oh shit, that would have been such a cool, because it almost made you go back in time and look at everything that happened in our season very differently. But like a lot of the stories that we've talked about, great stories that nobody will ever know unless they hear the podcast. Right,
true. And so in the last 3 years, you did American Gods, American Meme, American Typecast, and American Exit.
That's true.
A lot of American films. American Typecast, you wrote, directed, produced, and starred in. That's a short. Yep. What can you tell about American Typecast?
Well, I did all that except for the directing part. I did that with Moni Babat, who's my star and my good friend and co-writer and everything else. We started our company Duffel Bag Entertainment based on wanting to create content that was more diverse than some of the things that we had seen previous. Mo is Middle Eastern. He was sharing all these amazing stories of what it was to be marginalized in this industry and the Middle Eastern experience. And he would tell me things that we would be laughing at and cringing at because he's like, I'm going in to play another terrorist today. I'm going in to play another guy that blows himself up. I'm going stereotyped, Middle Eastern stereotype. And he's from Sacramento. He's like born and raised here. And so we put together this short American Typecast, which was really for us a 3-act story where we wanted to show a hero moment for a Middle Eastern actor. I felt like I was like, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Why can't a Middle Eastern actor have a real hero moment? So we created something that I think was a nice vehicle for both Mo to show his ability, but also for me and us to tell a story. And as a person that wants to direct more and direct things that are very different from who I am on stage, it was a nice way to turn the corner and start down that road.
And that's available for people to watch online if they want.
Yeah, American Typecast. It's 16 minutes, and people really it's been nothing but just wonderful results from people who see that. You'll be very entertained. It's a great twist in the third act.
Yeah, for sure. And American Exit was produced by friends of mine, Ross Kahn and Nancy Leopardi. Yeah. I like them a lot. Yeah, I've known Ross a long time. And that was another dramatic role for you. So I feel like you've entered this dramatic period.
And that's the best dramatic work I've ever done.
Yeah.
Great. It's not a film that got a theatrical release that was big enough to really, you want to sometimes get that there's that way that buzz sometimes even on a smaller project can ripple effect. And, it's hard to get that. It's that zeitgeist stuff that's so beyond you.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it didn't make the splash there. But now that it's been on iTunes and available for people to discover there, Levi Miller plays my son. It's a straight up it's more of a drama. But to me, the tempo of the action in it keeps the tempo at a good pace for a drama. Sometimes a drama can get a little maudlin.
Right.
But this isn't that movie. But as far as the kind of work that I want to continue to do from, say, Brian Fuller up, it's been a nice, again, calling card for, except for this year, everything's stalling, people starting to go like, hey, would you be interested? We have a role of a killer, but he needs to be kind of funny. You kind of like him, but he's scary. And it's like, oh, the fact that this phone call is even happening I'm very grateful.
Yeah. So you're not typecast. And then that brings us to 2019, where you went on tour again for the first time since Under Oath in 2013. Right. A year ago, September 2019, you had sold out Radio City Music Hall, back on top.
Yeah.
And what was that like to sell it out 29 years into your career?
Dude, the best. I remember, it's funny because people go like, oh, Madison Square Garden. And, I'd done the Beacon Theater. And trust me, Madison Square Garden will forever be like the holy shit of holy shit moments. But
Yeah.
I always looked at Radio City, you know, as for me, maybe being the ultimate room to play. I think a lot of it came back to my mom growing up used to always say to me how much she wished she had been a Rockette.
Yeah.
She was a great dancer, beautiful legs. My mom was really just had that thing about her, that
Yeah.
certain, you know, she'd get on stage somewhere and she just lit up a stage. She always said, oh man, if I ever could have done anything different in my life, I wish I could have auditioned or tried to be a Rockette. So for
Wow.
me to play Radio City was the ultimate, like, not only was it me replanting the comedy flag last year in a lot of
Yeah.
ways,
Yep.
in a way that I'm finally so present. I don't live in the past. I'm not running away from anything. I'm not running so towards something. It's really the happiest and the healthiest I've been personally and professionally after a lot of turmoil and you know, business that I wasn't always ready to be in the middle of, but I was going to do it. So to do Radio City and then to be leading up to the next special, which was going to be filmed this year, but now we pushed that to March to May of next year.
Okay.
It's just been, aside from COVID, it's been nothing but the victory lap that I always hoped that it would be leading up to 30 years doing stand-up.
Yeah, we covered 30 years, and next will be
Ernest Glenn, thank you so much for not showing up.
exactly. And that moment teaches people you have to seize the moment. There was a moment for you to get on stage, and you seized it, and it changes your life. And you've mentored. You mentioned that you've mentored people. One of the people you mentored is Tiffany Haddish, and she's gone on to have this incredibly successful career. How does it feel? You do these comedy camps through Laugh Factory.
Yeah, she was 13 or 14 at the time. I
Amazing.
mean, you know, that's a long time ago now for all of us.
Yeah.
But she had that thing, you know. In fact, Tiffany knew more than anybody, more than me, even though I could see this special performer. She had that voice inside of her that I had when I was young that said, I think I'm different. I think I know how to accomplish something beyond. And I watched her for a lot of years work, struggle, try to, you know, get her, you know, figure it out. And only she knew the equation that she was trying to work out. Man, not only did she make it, she excelled past all of us. I mean, really, it's like, you know, we've all done things that'll be unique to us, but I feel like she has done so much under the umbrella that represents really where you want your career to hit in on all cylinders. So
Yeah.
I'm proud of her from all the way back there, and now to be as a fan to watch her and as a friend,
Yeah.
very gratifying.
Yeah. She was the first female stand-up comic to host SNL, right?
Amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
Amazing.
And so going along those lines, I always like to ask my guests before they go to share their advice. What advice do you have for someone who has, you know, dreams like you did as a kid?
Oh man, it's a lot to unpack
Yeah.
because you want to give so much advice. You want to like, what I try to tell people who, you know, people write me quite often, and you know, I want to try stand up, I want to get on stage, or I have an idea for a business. How do you do it from the ground up? And I think the more than anything else, forget about like the things that you need are obviously education. You need the knowledge of the industry that you're putting yourself into. There's a whole plethora of things that you could be reading and researching,
Yeah.
but nothing becomes a reality until it's out of your mind and in the world. And how that happens is you get a piece of paper, you get a pen, and you write down what you want. You write down and you see it. Because once you write something down and you see it, it's the ripple is starting. The ripple is starting. Quick story to wrap it all up to answer your question.
Yeah.
1997, I have an idea for a short film called Wish You Were Here. And it ended up being called Spiral. But Wish You Were Here was a short film that I wrote on the first version of Final Draft on my first IBM ThinkPad computer when I was living next to Barney's Beanery when I first landed in LA after I was living at the Burbank Holiday Inn and then decided to stay, my first apartment. And I'm trying to teach myself to be a writer, and I've got an idea for Wish You Were Here. And it's a 3-act idea of a guy that's decided he doesn't want to live anymore, and he's in his apartment, and he's basically almost visited by 3 figments of his imagination, and he has 3 wish you were here with me conversations before he may or may not end his life. Very bleak, but with humor, with a lot of stuff that's happening in that 15 minutes. And I just wanted to see if I could write it because it was so different from stand-up.
Yeah.
And it had been in my head for a couple of years. And by the way, people always say, like, was that you? Were you suicidal and feeling? No, it was not me. But I understood hopelessness, and I understood feeling dead ends and trapped. But no, I never felt like a feeling like I wanted to not be on this earth anymore. But I understood this character. It's been in my head. I finally write it down. I hit print, and I print out 13 pages. 13 pages is now a reality. It's not in my head anymore. And it's sitting on my table. I staple it. I send it to 2 friends to read. And one person goes, I don't get it. And the second one said, I know some people over at Paramount. I can get some, at Panavision, I can get some short ends. Short ends are like leftover film that you used to be able to get if you were, right? You're up and coming filmmaker. You get these things called short ends.
Yeah.
This is before digital, right?
Yep.
I think I can get those. I also know a guy who does lighting for next to nothing. Okay. So now we're putting a little motley crew together. And now we're filming it. 6 months later, we're actually making this thing. And I film it. And we put it on a video cassette. And then I have it with a little title, which ended up being called Spiral. And I'm like, wow, this idea came out of my head on my IBM ThinkPad. And I printed it. And I gave it to people. And they responded. And we made it. Okay, now it's a cassette. 2 years goes by. And by the way, like a few people saw it. And I got some nice reaction. I think I won like some online award here in Hollywood. But at the Roosevelt Hotel, I got an award in the room where they had the very first Academy Awards. In that room, they handed me an award. Nice. In that room. And I thought, if it goes no further, the thing that came out of my head brought me into the Roosevelt Hotel, and I just got an award where the first Academy Awards were held. Wow. Yes. Wow. 2 years goes by. My phone rings. My agent says, you're never going to believe who's on the line. I said, who? He goes, Peter Powell. I said, Peter Powell, I know that name. He goes, he's the cinematographer who won the Academy Award for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Wow.
He wants to talk to you. Peter Powell gets on the phone. Hello, Dane Cook. It's a pleasure to speak with you. Hi, Peter Powell. How do you know me? He didn't know me as a comedian. He said, your movie Spiral ended up on my desk in Hong Kong. He said, I watched it. And I'd like to offer you a role in my new film with Michelle Yeoh. And we're producing it. It's going to be a worldwide this, that, the other. Richard Roxburgh's the bad guy. You're going to be the second henchman. You're the comedy relief. You're in the whole movie. You're this, you're that. A year from then, I'm living in Beijing, Qingdao, Dunhuang. I'm all up and down the Chinese coast. I'm living right next to the Great Wall of China where it ends in Dunhuang in the Western deserts. All because I printed out 13 pages that only existed in here. Wow. And that ripple took me to the far deserts of China. Write your idea down, start getting it out into the world. It will become a reality. It may not become all the reality that you think it is, but it will become a reality.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I agree with that. My mom has always said to me since I'm a kid, make it happen. So when I moved to LA, I had her write on a piece of paper, make it happen. And I framed it. Yeah. So I have a framed paper that says make it happen. And when you see it in writing, you feel it, it exists.
Right. You feel just your own reaction. But once you put something in words, then it becomes almost like a template.
Yeah.
Now it's in the world. Now it's part of everything.
Incredible. Well, so the very last thing we do is called the mystery question, where the guest from my last podcast leaves a question for my next guest, whoever that may be.
Okay.
And so the guest on my last podcast was Cody Calafiore, who just won Big Brother All-Stars. He emailed...
I watched the whole season.
Did you?
I'm a huge Big Brother fan.
Oh, wow. Me too. And so
I watched the whole thing. I've never missed a season.
Me neither, since episode 1. Oh, I never knew that about you.
It's like my guilty pleasure. It's the only show I wish I could do, but my agents were like, you're not doing that.
Well, I wish I could do it, but I can't be cut off from the world for 3 months. That's my thing.
I
That's so
love it.
funny. Oh, I never knew that. So Cody, who won, I know him. He lives in New Jersey,
Yeah.
and he did the last episode. So that works out perfectly. That he gave
Okay.
you the mystery question. So he emailed it. It was printed, sealed in an envelope, number
Right.
59.
Okay.
We've been doing it since episode 1. So
Okay.
the question from Cody is: if you could rewind and do over one day in your life, which day would it be? From Cody.
Okay. What I like about that question is it's not a do-over like changing something. It's literally like you can just live that moment again, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Well, it would for sure, for certain, be a day with my mom.
Hmm.
And I think it would probably be the day that I sat with my mom. I remember I sat with my mom after years of struggling in stand up, and I sat with her in a restaurant and I told her um, that I had made enough money and I wanted to buy her a house.
Wow.
And we got steaks that night, and we reminisced about all the times that everybody said, you're never going to be able to make it because of this and that, and you didn't go to college and all that. And we were just laughing. We laughed and celebrated the idea of hope. And, one person believed in me. It was her. She was my number one fan and my best friend. So
Mhm.
I would go back and gladly um, share that experience with Donna Jean Ford Cook one more time. The whole thing is a tribute to my mom. I love her. I miss her. Everything I do from here on out, my dad too. My dad's got a great special place in my heart, but my mom and I were something special. So great question, Cody, and I hope that's a good answer.
That's a perfect answer, and it shows that that's what led to the last 30 years of your life that got us to 2020,
Yeah,
and we are
man,
now.
we've been talking so long. I think we've done this in real time.
I know we traced it back. Well, it's hard to condense 30 years. That you've had a very
You did. By the way,
successful
you
career.
did an amazing job, man. Wow. You
Thank
really
you.
holy goodness. I don't know how much time it took you to research, but you brought me right back to some times that I haven't thought of in a lot of years. So thank you for a great conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for doing it. And it was part my own memories because you've been part of my LA story since 2002,
Yeah, yeah.
and part research. So that was perfect. So that is a wrap on episode 59. We did it.
59, man. All right.
Yeah.
I'll be coming up with my question for the next person.
Oh yeah, whoever that may be. So thank
Yeah.
you, Dane, for doing this. We've come full circle since I was in that Oakwood apartment watching your comedy special, and here we are talking about it. If you somehow still have not seen the Fast Times at Ridgemont High table read, you can find it on the Core Response YouTube page, and you can still donate. And whenever you need a laugh, especially during these times, watch any of Dane's comedy specials. We talked about all of them. So thank you again, Dane, for being here.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and I will talk to you next time.